Chapter 210. Ever since the usually indifferent Zhongli returned from the mountain valley, he would reveal a smile from time to time, as if he were in a very good mood. Daoist Wang curled his lips in disdain. He thought that Qin Yu wasn't just a sword cultivator but also a formidable alchemist. Their alchemy lineage also had a successor. Old Jiang, what are you blindly showing off for? But even though he said this, Daoist Wang couldn't help but feel a cold chill run down his spine as he thought about how Qin Yu had instantly broken through the stone wall. He thought that he would have to pay attention to how he spoke to this brat in the future, otherwise if he were to fly into a rage out of shame like that, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. He thought about how he had cultivated for so many years to reach his current level of strength, but he had been overtaken in such a short period of time. He couldn't help but feel a bit of disappointment and envy in his heart. Jealousy and hatred weren't necessary. After all, this brat Qin Yu could be considered his disciple to a certain degree. Every time Daoist Wang thought of this, he couldn't help but feel a bit of pride. Hee, old Jiang, you can't compare to me in this aspect. It seemed that Zhongli had given it to Qin Yu, and in addition to that jade slip he had given him, it seemed that the two of them were about the same in this aspect. Qin Yu brought up the matter of Gu Ling, and her 5 senior apprentice sisters joining Immortal Eclipse Valley together. After being mocked by Daoist Wang several times, the matter was settled. Gu Ling paid her respects to the 2 old fellows. As expected, she received 2 gifts, and both of them were extremely precious treasures. This left Gu Ling panic-stricken. It was only when Qin Yu had her help that she nervously expressed her thanks to the 2. During these days, the entire Yun family naturally did everything they could to curry favor with them, hoping that they could form a bit more relationship with Immortal Eclipse Valley. To the Yun family, this was an extremely important matter. When Yunfan broke through to nascent soul, the Yun family finally had a certain status. Daoist Wang was also polite when dealing with them. It was unknown what sort of agreement he had reached with Yunfan in private, but in short, the 2 of them were smiling happily. Qin Yu didn't have the time to bother with them. Under the careful guidance of Zhongli, he was beginning to refine the 5-element magic swords with his blood, refining them into void and turning them into his life source magic weapons. On this point, the sword cultivator Zhongli naturally had the right to speak. In his words, Qin Yu had walked into a great stroke of luck. Others could only have a single life magic tool, but he could have 5. In the future, as his cultivation rose and he constantly nourished them, the might of the 5-element magic swords would constantly rise. At that time, he would truly be fierce. After spending a month, the 5-element magic swords had been refined to completion. They merged into his Dantian Sea and floated above his golden core, circulating with the energy of the golden core as it constantly transformed. Qin Yu, in the future when you nourish your magic sword, you must pay attention to how much damage it causes to your body. Finding a balance is the most important thing, otherwise you might end up being damaged. This was the only hidden danger. After all, having 5 life-bound magic treasures was a huge burden for a cultivator. Qin Yu nodded. I will pay extra attention to this matter. Daoist Wang drank a mouthful of wine and said impatiently, you guys are really enough. You went into seclusion for a month just for this matter. Don't tell me you're not sick of it. I strongly request a change of topic. He rubbed his chin. For instance, when Yunfan was crossing tribulation, did you really swallow the tribulation clouds? The unhappiness on Jiang Li's face faded away and was replaced with a bit of concern. It was clear he also cared about this matter. Qin Yu thought for a moment and said, I don't want to lie to you, but there are some things that I really can't say. But, if I'm purely referring to that night, yes, that's what happened. Daoist Wang smacked his lips and whispered to himself. Occasionally, he would hear words like freak, limitless, and so on. It was clear he wasn't saying anything good. Jiangli glanced at him, his gaze deep. But he didn't ask anything further. Instead, Daoist Wang casually said, "You really went all out for Yunfan. Did you take a liking to that girl? That girl Yun Xueqing is quite pretty." Qin Yu shook his head. "No, it's mainly because I need to swallow a massive amount of heavenly tribulation right now. For some reason, this is beneficial to me." Daoist Wang's face stiffened. "You're saying that the reason you helped Yunfan cross tribulation wasn't because you wanted to help him, but because you needed the heavenly tribulation?" Qin Yu nodded. "That's right." Daoist Wang's complexion was ugly to the extreme. He clenched his teeth, as if he had nowhere to vent his anger. Qin Yu blinked his eyes. He turned and asked, "What's wrong with him?" Jiangli had a light expression. "Oh, you mean old Wang. In truth, it's nothing much. It's just that when he crossed tribulation, he was almost burnt to a crisp by that tribulation thunder. He should be feeling a bit unbalanced in his heart." "Shut up!" Daoist Wang roared out. "When we cultivators cultivate, we must rely on ourselves. Haven't you heard of the old saying? A treasure sword needs to be sharpened, and the fragrance of plum blossoms comes from the bitter cold. Only by relying on oneself can one become truly formidable. Yunfan has never personally experienced the baptism of heavenly tribulation. This will be his life's greatest regret." His words were forceful and powerful. He had a proud expression on his face, as if he were proud that he had crossed tribulation. But the anger and envy in his words couldn't be concealed at all. Then, Yunfan just happened to arrive. He gave Daoist Wang another powerful stab. "I think this is very good. To be able to smoothly break through without crossing tribulation, only an idiot wouldn't want to." Old Wang felt as if he had received 100,000 points of critical damage. He flicked his sleeves and left, shutting himself in. However, when Qin Yu mentioned that he hoped to obtain more heavenly tribulation, he was opposed by Jiangli. Although news of Snowfall City's Yunfan crossing tribulation has spread far and wide, most people have only heard it through hearsay and don't believe it in their hearts. After all, in their opinion, how could something like heavenly tribulation possibly be swallowed by a person? Jiangli had a dignified expression. This is a deeply ingrained belief in them, and it is also the greatest hidden danger. If there is a second or third time, and they determine that you can really swallow heavenly tribulation, have you considered what sort of dangers you will face? Qin Yu bitterly smiled. "I have naturally thought about it, but heavenly tribulation is far too important to me right now. Even if I know the risks are great, I can only take the risk." Jiangli frowned. If Qin Yu said this, then he really had his own difficulties. He thought about it and then said, "Perhaps you can jump out of this circle and hide your identity. You can go to a place where no one knows you and obtain heavenly tribulation there." "Where?" Jiangli faintly smiled. "The sea region." He didn't notice the unnatural expression that flashed across Qin Yu's face. He continued to say, "The sea region is endless and the sea monster races are incomparably powerful. They have countless powerhouses. If you help them cross tribulation and collect heavenly tribulation, do you think there won't be enough of them? The sea races are already strong enough. If they could exterminate humanity, they would have done so long ago. Their greatest limitation is that they can't leave the sea, and this is also the reason why I want you to go to the sea region. Otherwise, if you were allowed to mess around on the continent, you would definitely stir up great chaos." As Jiangli spoke to hear, he paused, as if he had forgotten something. After several breaths of time, he looked up. Several days ago, a nascent soul great monster appeared in the Northern Dynasty's mountains. "This shouldn't be," Qin Yu dryly smiled. "If you are talking about a lecherous white tiger, then it should be." Jiangli was left speechless for a long time. "Qin Yu, do you know why there are so many monsters on the continent, but no nascent soul realm cultivator has appeared. Qin Yu's eyes widened. That's right, it's exactly what you're thinking. That's because humans, whether they are righteous or demonic, are deliberately suppressing the strength of the monster races on the continent in order to prevent them from growing too strong. Zhongli frowned. But now, the entire suppression plan has been ruined by you. If a first nascent soul appears among the monster races, then there is a chance that a second or even a third will appear. Have you ever thought that there might be a day when our human race will have to withstand a formidable threat from them? Qin Yu had an awkward expression. When he was in a hurry to obtain heavenly tribulation, how could he have thought about such things? Jiang Li shook his head. It looks like I was right to let you go to the sea region. If I let you continue to mess around, who knows what sort of trouble you'll stir up again. Qin Yu's embarrassment deepened. Jiang Li had a puzzled expression. Was I wrong? Is there something you find hard to say? Qin Yu coughed. Not too long ago, I just returned from the sea region. Some things happened during this time, so it's not convenient for me to return for the time being. Jiang Li was speechless. He looked straight at Qin Yu, his heart in complete chaos. Just what sort of person was this? In such a vast world, he had actually made himself unable to stay here and unable to go anywhere. He couldn't help but admit that this could be considered a skill. After all, if one didn't have the skill, they wouldn't be able to do this. But brat, aren't you a bit too good at messing around? If you can't go to the sea region, then there's nothing I can do. But, I still have to remind you that it's best if you don't help others cross tribulation again. Qin Yu nodded, bitterly smiling to himself. He didn't know how, but Daoist Wang had found out about this. He had run over to taunt and ridicule Qin Yu, but the meaning behind his words was clear. Listen to old Jiang, that's right. Qin Yu was a bit moved, but he still hadn't made up his mind. The little blue lamp was different from others. It was his foundation and his hope. Every day that it didn't recover was another day that Qin Yu couldn't feel at ease. How could he continue waiting? Perhaps it felt Qin Yu's distress, but on the second day after Daoist Wang taunted him, as night arrived, the long silent little blue lamp lit up without warning. The deep blue light caused Qin Yu to feel something that he hadn't felt for a long time. Then, from the depths of his heart, from the depths of his soul, he felt a surge of excitement. It was like his entire soul had been lit up. Even the pitch-black darkness around him seemed to become gentle and lovable. The little blue lamp lit up. It lit up. Qin Yu carefully supported it, afraid that the slightest movement would extinguish it. Luckily, the deep blue light calmly flowed on without any signs of dissipating. Heavenly tribulation needs more. Intermittent fluctuations echoed in his mind. A thoughtful look crossed Qin Yu's face. He could faintly feel that the little blue lamp had passed its most difficult moment. It still needed heavenly tribulation, but it wasn't as urgent as before. This gave Qin Yu a large buffer zone. Several more days passed. The little blue lamp bloomed every night and Qin Yu felt completely relieved. At the same time, he began to think about what he should do next. The next day, Qin Yu pushed open the door and found Jiang Li and Daoist Wang. He told them that they could leave. Facing Gu Ling's hesitant expression, Qin Yu smiled and rubbed her head. Don't worry, I will go with you this time. In the past I provoked many people, so in order to prevent you from being bullied, I naturally have to make arrangements. This was certainly an excuse. The most important reason for going to Immortal Eclipse Valley was that his whereabouts had already been exposed. The demonic path would find out sooner or later. During the Great War between the righteous and demonic paths, he had become a thorn in their side. In addition to the matter of the Saint Furnace in the sea region, Qin Yu believed that the demon monarch wouldn't find it too troublesome to kill him. In the entire world, only Immortal Eclipse Valley was safe. Of course, another reason was that Immortal Eclipse Valley had the pill disposal department. If the little blue lamp lit up once more, he would be able to obtain cultivation resources from there. Chapter 211. Not long after leaving Snowfall City, Zhongli and Daoist Wang led the way. They landed in a hidden mountain cave. He opened the dust-covered cave and found a transmission array inside. Although it was covered in a thick layer of dust, it began to emit light after some adjustments were made and spirit stones were added. Qin Yu's eyebrows shot up, surprise on his face. Daoist Wang's eyebrows arched up. Immortal Eclipse Valley is rich and overbearing. Their inheritance has been passed down for generations, so this isn't anything at all. He had a disdainful expression on his face as if Qin Yu were an ignorant brat. Zhongli made the final corrections and confirmed that there were no problems. He said, "All right, come in." Gu Ling, and the others were a bit nervous. To cultivators, long-distance transmission arrays placed a considerable amount of pressure on them. If their cultivation was too low, they might even be injured during the transmission. Qin Yu smiled, "Don't worry, it's fine." A dazzling light burst forth from the teleportation array. The space distorted slightly, and everyone in the array disappeared. Kacha, kacha, a shattering sound rang out, and when all the light dissipated, the teleportation formation was already broken, and could no longer be used. Immortal Eclipse Valley. The array formation suddenly lit up, and within the intense light, many figures quickly appeared. "Greetings, Elder Zhongli, Elder Wang." The disciple on guard hurriedly bowed, and then he was stunned for a moment before he hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, young martial ancestral uncle." The disciple of the Zhao clan complained bitterly in his heart. They had just settled down for a period of time, so why did this ancestor return? This time, the valley was going to be lively again. Of course, that was what he thought in his heart, but his attitude was as respectful as it could be, and he couldn't find any fault in it. Of course, little martial granduncle Qin was a 5th-level alchemist. Just this point alone was enough for him to revere him as if he was a god. Of course, there was also a reason why he didn't want to look for trouble for himself. The facts had already proven that anyone who went against the young martial ancestral uncle wouldn't have a good ending. Gu Ling, and her several senior apprentice sisters were stunned as they heard this. Their eyes widened. Was this person talking about Big Brother Qin Yu? Although they knew that he had an extremely close relationship with Immortal Eclipse Valley, this status was still far too unexpected. Little martial granduncle. Just thinking about this seniority made him dizzy. Qin Yu smiled. "It's just a title. I won't say too much about the specifics. It's enough that you know I have a cheap senior apprentice brother here." "Cheap senior brother. Humph. It looks like I shouldn't have agreed to let old Jiang and old Wang go out to help you." Pill Crucible appeared with a scowl on his face, his eyes fierce. Qin Yu grinned. He never thought that Qin Yu would arrive so quickly. He smiled and greeted, "Senior apprentice brother, it's been a long time since we last met." "I've missed you." Pill Crucible's complexion changed. "What do you want to do?" "Qin Yu, do you think this old man doesn't understand you? Since you're speaking so nicely, it's definitely nothing good. Let me tell you now, if you have any wishful thinking, hurry up and take it back." "No way." Pill Crucible coldly sneered again and again. His eyes turned to Gu Ling, and the others, and his face instantly changed. He smiled and said, "These little girls aren't bad. You are the sign of life. Our Immortal Eclipse Valley is lacking people like you. Welcome." As for Gu Ling, and the others joining Immortal Eclipse Valley, Zhongli and Daoist Wang had already reported this to Pill Crucible. In the end, Pill Crucible was still the master of Immortal Eclipse Valley. Although this matter couldn't be considered much, they still needed to report it ahead of time and obtain his approval. Qin Yu was left speechless. With Pill Crucible's status, weren't you afraid of losing face by revealing the face of a matchmaker? Moreover, Pill Crucible had always maintained a dignified appearance in front of others. He paid the most attention to his own image, so how could he have become like this after not seeing him for several years? Could he have suffered some sort of mental blow and given up on his treatment? Cough. Let me introduce you, this is Immortal Eclipse Valley's master. Valley Master, Senior Pill Cauldron. These words frightened Gu Ling, and the others. They were well aware of Immortal Eclipse Valley's status and strength. They never imagined that this common-looking old man in front of them was the one who wielded the highest authority here. They hurriedly bowed. Pill Crucible smiled. That's enough, there's no need to be so polite. I have already made arrangements. Someone will lead you there. He slapped his forehead and walked in front of Gu Ling. You are Ling, right? This is the first time we've met, so as your senior, I have to express my gratitude. Take this token. If anyone bullies you in the future, you can take it out and smash their head with it. I guarantee that no one will dare to fight back. Qin Yu's eyes twitched. What nonsense. If you gave Gu Ling the token representing your status as an elder, then of course no one would dare to fight back if she took it and hit them in the head. The truth was that this was a decision Pill Crucible had made after thinking about it. He already knew how much Qin Yu valued this little sister of his. He was worried that there would be people in Immortal Eclipse Valley who didn't know what to do and stirred up trouble for them. Thus, he simply took out this token and solved the problem once and for all. Gu Ling blushed red. She waved her hand, wanting to explain that she wouldn't hit anyone. But, she was so nervous that she couldn't speak. Beads of sweat began to drip down her forehead. Qin Yu patted her shoulder. Senior apprentice brother gave it to you, so take it. It's fine. Gu Ling received it and earnestly bowed in thanks. Pill Crucible smiled and praised her. This little girl was truly polite. Then, he curled his lips and said, it's just that this big brother of yours is a bit unreliable. Don't just stand there, I have something I want to ask you. Hurry up and come over. Qin Yu was a bit puzzled. Just where did Pill Crucible's resentment come from? For the sake of calling him a cheap senior apprentice brother, he would taunt and ridicule him. There was something wrong with this. But since he was under the eaves, he could only pinch his nose and accept it. After giving Gu Ling some advice, he cupped his hands together and said, Senior apprentice brother, please. Pill Crucible coldly snorted and turned to leave. Xian and the others had worried expressions. It seemed that Senior Qin Yu wasn't well received. If they came to Immortal Eclipse Valley, would they have any good days? Would they be assigned to someone as a concubine or something like that as soon as they arrived? This thought made the girls jump in fright. Daoist Wang glanced over and guessed what they were thinking. He smiled and said, don't worry, the Valley Master has an extremely good relationship with Qin Yu. Today, he is just a bit unbalanced in his heart. Beside him, Jiangli lightly said, just like you did before. Daoist Wang's face stiffened. He clenched his teeth and said, Old Jiang, can we still be friends? Jiangli walked away, his voice echoing back from afar. The boat of friendship, I can row it alone. Pill Crucible was still living in his original place. His face was cold the entire way. Qin Yu rubbed his nose and simply didn't speak, enjoying the peace and quiet. In any case, with Pill Crucible's personality, even if Qin Yu didn't ask him anything, he would still tell him everything. Humph. Humph humph. Humph humph humph. When Pill Crucible used too much strength, causing his breathing to quicken, Qin Yu revealed a helpless expression. Senior apprentice brother, just what do you want to say? At this time, the two of them had entered the main hall and were sitting across from each other. Pill Crucible sneered. Fierce, your wings have hardened, right? Towards a senior apprentice brother like me, you don't even have the most basic respect. Cheap senior apprentice brother, just thinking about these words makes my heart go cold. Who was it that saved you from the demon monarch in the past? Who was it that helped you become the master of the 8th furnace and obtained the great furnace inheritance? Who was it that helped you obtain the 5-element sword diagram and allowed you to have your current cultivation? The more he spoke, the more agitated he became. Even the wrinkles on his old face began to shake. You brat, you are simply an ungrateful brat. You have the heart of a wolf and the lungs of a dog, you don't even have the slightest bit of gratitude. Qin Yu's eyes widened. Just what was this all about? Someone had saved him from the demon monarch's hands, and there was nothing to say about that. But to become the master of the 8th furnace, he had relied on the fleeting flame furnace as well as the 5-element sword diagram. He had used all sorts of facts to threaten Zhongli. It was only because of his persistence that he managed to obtain the 5-element sword diagram from Zhongli. But slowly, Qin Yu began to understand. No matter how he thought about it, there was something a bit sour in these words. Then, as he thought about it, it was indeed like this. Qin Yu's eyebrows shot up. Senior apprentice brother, you are jealous. Pill Crucible's excited face stiffened. He sneered 3 times, what nonsense. With my cultivation and status, why would I need to be jealous of you? Keep on dreaming. You are jealous. Pill Crucible fiercely stood up. I am jealous of you. Qin Yu, you brat, say that again. Do you believe that I won't enforce the sect rules on behalf of teacher and severely punish you? Qin Yu changed his posture and comfortably leaned back in his chair. First of all, you and I have never seen teacher, so sect rules and whatnot don't exist. Of course, if you want to make new rules, then I will choose to refuse. The votes will be 1-to-1, and the sect rules will be invalid. Moreover, senior apprentice brother, you are really jealous. This isn't good. You are old, so you should calm down, otherwise you will only be looking for trouble. Pill Crucible coldly snorted, his complexion ugly. That's right, the reason he had such a bad temper was because he was unhappy in his heart. Why? Everyone had spent a great deal of effort to reach nascent soul, and it wasn't an exaggeration to say that they had to go through mountains of blades and seas of fire. But what about Qin Yu? In the blink of an eye, he had gone from golden core to nascent soul in just a few years. His speed was simply unreasonable. And most importantly, he didn't even fear heavenly tribulation. No, that wasn't completely accurate. Not only did he not fear heavenly tribulation, he was simply running away from it. The continent's monster races had been suppressed by humanity for so many years that they didn't even have a single nascent soul realm monster king. But now, he had waved his hand and done so. Moreover, he had heard that this boy had even gone to the sea region and stirred up no small amount of trouble there. Now, there was no way for him to return. Just think about it, just how much trouble did he stir up? Pill Crucible felt that as the senior apprentice brother, he had to make Qin Yu realize his own mistakes. He couldn't act recklessly just because he was strong, otherwise sooner or later he would stir up a great deal of trouble. What? Jealous? I, Pill Crucible, am the dignified master of Immortal Eclipse Valley, a peak nascent soul supermaster. I can shake the heavens and earth with just a stamp of my feet, so why would I be jealous of him? I don't believe you, why wouldn't you believe me? I'm not jealous, I'm not. Qin Yu smiled. He felt that the current Pill Crucible was like an old child, but the feeling he gave off was even better than before. As he thought about how he still had to ask Pill Crucible for help, he coughed and straightened himself. I was wrong. Just what sort of character is Senior Apprentice Brother? I certainly wouldn't be jealous of Chinyu. I ask that Senior Apprentice Brother be magnanimous and not lower yourself to my level. Pill Crucible's face flushed red. He coughed and humphed, Brat, it's good that you know. This senseless matter was finally over. Chinyu changed the topic. Senior Apprentice Brother, I heard that relations with the demonic path have been tense recently. What's going on? The reason Zhongli and Daoist Wang opened the transmission array to return to Immortal Eclipse Valley wasn't just because they wanted to save time. For them to be so cautious, it could be imagined just how tense relations with the demonic path had become. Pill Crucible's complexion sank. He coldly coughed and said, some time ago, I don't know what bastard swept through the demonic path's branch altar in Homehold City. All of the demonic cultivators, including Bloodthirsty Demon, died and all of this shit was pushed onto Immortal Eclipse Valley's head. That bastard demon monarch seemed to have gone crazy and crazily attacked Immortal Eclipse Valley. At the start, we lost a great deal of manpower and even now, we are still affected in all aspects. Although it can be said that within the borders of the Southern Empire and Northern Dynasty, only my Immortal Eclipse Valley dares to massacre the demonic path's branch altars and also has a sufficient stance, this matter really wasn't done by us. Pill Crucible clenched his teeth. Don't let me know which bastard framed us, otherwise I will skin him alive. Chapter 212. Chinyu violently coughed. Pill Crucible frowned in dissatisfaction. What do you mean? Chinyu coughed fiercely. He waved his hand with difficulty, but no matter how one looked at him, it was clear that he had a guilty conscience. Pill Crucible's mouth fell open. He lifted a trembling hand and pointed at Chinyu. You, don't tell me that you did this. Chinyu awkwardly smiled. It's mainly because I have my reasons for doing this. Moreover, I never thought I would cause such a great deal of trouble. Pill Crucible's complexion paled. His eyes looked as if he wanted to eat someone alive. He clenched his teeth and said, Chinyu, how are you, how are you? He was originally cursing the demonic path for indiscriminately dealing with Immortal Eclipse Valley, but now it seemed that they weren't wrong at all. No matter how one looked at it, everything could be blamed on Immortal Eclipse Valley. What kind of sin did he commit? Chinyu dryly laughed several times. Senior Apprentice Brother, please calm your anger, calm your anger. Well, I'm going to see how Ling, and the others are doing. I just arrived at Immortal Eclipse Valley, so I hope you understand the rules. He turned around and fled. The matter of the pill disposal department could be brought up later. Otherwise, he was really worried that Pill Crucible would go berserk. Disregarding everything else, it would be simple for him to capture him and beat him up. After Chinyu left, the anger on Pill Crucible's face suddenly faded away. He frowned, as if he were vexed over something. After a long time, he sighed and said, I originally thought that my calculations were wrong, but now that everything has been verified, it seems that the final result cannot be changed. He shook his head and suppressed the tumbling emotions in his heart. Since he had confirmed the result, he had to make arrangements for the things around him as soon as possible. Chinyu's appearance was both a danger and a lucky chance for Immortal Eclipse Valley. But as for what the result would be, he couldn't see it. Sigh, thinking about it, I'm really unwilling. Gu Ling, and the others were placed in a place called Little Bamboo Grove. The environment was tranquil and beautiful, and the surroundings were cleared out medicinal fields. As the medicinal fragrance drifted in the breeze, one would feel refreshed after taking a deep breath. When Chinyu arrived, the several girls were gathered together. They were excitedly discussing everything they had seen and heard after entering Immortal Eclipse Valley. Their voices were filled with joy and anticipation. Greetings, Senior Chin. Upon seeing him, the female cultivators hurriedly stood up. Qin Yu waved his hand. No need to be so polite. He sat down and wanted to kill some time, but before he could say anything, he was interrupted by someone. Xing Zhongxiu hurried over, his face full of joy. Brother Qin, I just received news of your return. You should stay a bit longer this time so we can drink to our heart's content. When Qin Yu left in the past, he had forced the 8th furnace to approve of him. In the following years, Xing Zhongxiu worked hard, and with Pill Crucible's careful training, he had finally obtained the status of master of the 8th furnace not too long ago. Now, his actions were somewhat dignified. His long black and white hair, coupled with his handsome face, instantly caused the eyes of the girls from the rainbow sect to become hazy, and their faces flushed. Qin Yu swept his eyes around. He thought that being good-looking was indeed useful. But, he couldn't be envious of such things. He smiled and stood up. Brother Tseng, how are you? It was only then that Xing Zhongxiu discovered that the room was filled with beautiful girls. He was at a loss. Brother Qin, this is... It was clear that he had rushed over as soon as he heard the news and hadn't inquired about the basic situation. Qin Yu was moved. He smiled and introduced both sides. When they heard that this charming uncle was the master of Immortal Eclipse Valley's furnace, the eyes of the girls clearly warmed up a bit. The only thing that comforted Qin Yu was that Gu Ling-er's eyes were clear and bright. From beginning to end, she hadn't changed at all. As if sensing Qin Yu's eyes sweeping over the several senior apprentice sisters, she looked up and furtively winked at Qin Yu, as if saying, Big brother Qin Yu, I support you. Xing Zhongxiu revealed an awkward expression. Brother Qin's little sister is also my little sister. Unfortunately, I came in a hurry today, so I didn't bring any gifts. I apologize for my lack of manners. Gu Ling-er obediently shook her head. She thought that her big brother Qin Yu's relationships were just too good. No matter where he went, he would first give her a gift. She knew that this wasn't because everyone liked her, but because they valued Qin Yu. But it was because of this that she felt happy for her big brother Qin Yu from the bottom of her heart. He had already become a truly great figure. Xing Zhongxiu stayed behind. The several young girls scrambled to cook. Looking at their earnest appearances, it was clear they wanted to bring out their special skills to attract Senior Zhang's attention. Qin Yu followed him to a pavilion in the little bamboo grove and sat down. He smiled and teased, Brother Zhang is so popular, it really makes me envious. In these past years, you must have been pursued many times. Xing Zhongxiu revealed an awkward expression. All of my thoughts are currently immersed in my studies. It was only after I entered teacher's tutelage that I realized just how broad and profound the path of alchemy is. Even if I spent my entire life studying it, it would still be hard to grasp, so how could I be distracted by such things? As Xing Zhongxiu spoke, his face was filled with awe and sincerity. Qin Yu's lips twitched as he heard this. He wondered just how Pill Crucible had managed to turn the handsome and dashing Xing Zhongxiu into such a blockhead. Cough. In truth, you should consider your own personal problems. After all, the road is long and endless. If there is no one to accompany you, you will be lonely. Is that so? Qin Yu put on an authoritative appearance. He slowly nodded. That's right. Xing Zhongxiu hesitated. He hadn't said this to anyone, but in his heart, Qin Yu was already in existence on the level of an idol. It wasn't just because of his cultivation and status, but also because of his superb alchemy skills. A fifth-grade alchemist was enough to dominate the world. Moreover, his teacher would occasionally mention this in his daily lessons. Although there was a great deal of disdain in his words, as if that boy couldn't be compared to his teacher, he could still feel the envy in his words. Thus, he couldn't help but consider Qin Yu's words. He thought for a moment and said, Brother Qin, in the future, will you also find someone to accompany you for the rest of your life? Qin Yu smiled and said, Stop trying to change the topic. Why are you talking about me? You should be the one to seriously consider this. Spending your entire life alone is just too boring. Would he find such a person? Ning Ling's figure appeared in his mind. Qin Yu felt a bit of nostalgia and a bit of helplessness. He really was an indecisive person. It had already been so long and yet he still couldn't let go. In Homehold City, he had swept through the demonic path's branch altars and killed everyone below Bloodthirsty Demon. Thinking about it, this was all because of her. The food and wine were served. The taste was excellent. It could be seen that the girls had brought out their true abilities. Xian was the boldest. She used the alcohol to launch an attack on Xing Zhongxiu. But what a pity, it seemed that the effects weren't too good. After experiencing the fall of his youth and the rise and fall of the Xing family, the Xing Zhongxiu who had his current status had tempered his heart to a formidable degree. It wasn't easy to move him. After drinking for a long time, no one used their cultivation to dissolve the problem. Qin Yu's eyes were hazy and hazy. He leaned against a pillar and fell into a deep sleep. Gu Ling took out a handkerchief and wiped the sweat from his forehead. She listened to him whisper, Ning Ling. Ning Ling, her heart ached. She already knew what had happened from Qin Yu's words. As she thought about how Qin Yu had pretended to be calm on that day and how he revealed himself after he was drunk, her eyes couldn't help but turn red. She grabbed his hand and said, Big brother Qin Yu, don't worry. No matter what happens, Ling will accompany you. As long as you need me, I will never leave you alone. He slept for 2 days and 2 nights. When Qin Yu woke up, the first thing he saw was Gu Ling's smiling face. Big brother Qin Yu, you're awake. Do you want to wash up? How long did I sleep for? 2 days. Senior apprentice sister, Xian, and the others were all surprised. They said that big brother Qin Yu could sleep too much. Qin Yu's thoughts stirred. These past 2 days, have you been waiting here? Gu Ling blushed red. I haven't. I just didn't have anything else to do, so I came to take a look. Qin Yu's heart warmed. He walked over and rubbed her head. Thank you, Ling Gu Ling smiled happily. Big brother Qin Yu, wash up. I will prepare something for you to eat. Food wasn't important. With Qin Yu's current cultivation, even if he didn't eat or drink for 10 years he would still be fine. The key was in his heart. Thus, he ate until he was full. After drinking the last mouthful of soup, he praised, My Ling cooking is really good. I wonder who will be lucky enough to marry you in the future. Gu Ling was embarrassed. She stamped her feet and said, Big brother Qin Yu is bullying me. Qin Yu roared with laughter. After staying for a while longer and chatting with Gu Ling, Qin Yu bid his farewells and left. He decided that he wouldn't wait any longer. He would go lay his cards on the table with Pill Crucible. No matter what, he had to make Pill Crucible agree to go to the pill disposal department. Because of the little blue lamp, his cultivation had been delayed by a great deal. Time flowed like sand. It was something that shouldn't be wasted the most in this world. When he arrived at Pill Crucible's dwelling, he discovered that he had gone into seclusion. Qin Yu was stunned. Could it be that his performance had stimulated his cheap senior apprentice brother? When did Pill Crucible become so diligent? Moreover, the key issue was that if Pill Crucible went into seclusion, what would he do about going to the pill disposal department? Junior granduncle, please wait a moment. The Valley Master has made arrangements for Elder Xing. He will soon arrive. Xing Zhongxiu arrived quickly. He took out a token and said, before teacher went into seclusion, he told me to give this to Brother Qin. He said that if you needed anything, you could decide for yourself. The token had 8 great furnaces engraved on it, symbolizing the supreme authority of Immortal Eclipse Valley. This was Pill Crucible's own status token. When Pill Crucible wasn't present, he could rely on this token to control the entire Immortal Eclipse Valley. This cheap senior apprentice brother of his, although his words weren't forgiving, he was actually quite reliable. And this trust in him left Qin Yu feeling a bit moved. Of course, he didn't show it on his face. Instead, he said that it was troublesome and took the token. With this token in hand, entering the pill disposal department wasn't a problem at all. Soon after, beneath Chao Han's respectful and grateful gaze, he stepped forward several times. After several years, he stepped into Immortal Eclipse Valley's pill disposal department once more. Following this, if there wasn't an accident, it would be a long period of cultivation. Chapter 213. Junior Granduncle Qin had returned, but the chaos that would cause the Eclipse clan cultivators to feel uneasy did not appear. It was unknown what he was doing in the pill disposal department, but he hadn't appeared for a long time. The valley was as calm as usual. No, it should be said that it was even calmer than usual. That was because the Valley Lord was in closed-door training. It was a true closed-door training, unlike before, where he used the excuse of closed-door training to hide and slack off. But there were still changes. For instance, in the little bamboo grove, there were many young girls that came from the Rainbow sect. They were all beautiful and charming, and they attracted many fervent gazes. There were some who secretly admired them and some who fiercely pursued them, but no one dared to have any ideas about Miss Guling. She was the younger sister of little Martial Uncle Qin. Just her identity alone was enough to scare off many people. If they accidentally offended little Martial Uncle Qin, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even if he succeeded in wooing her, little Martial Granduncle wouldn't stop him. But what about after marriage? Do you dare to say something harsh? That wasn't dual cultivation Dao companions, it was simply marrying an empress. So no matter how one considered it, it was best to keep a respectful distance. Gu Ling was happy to enjoy the peace and quiet. As she looked at her senior apprentice sisters who didn't seem to be annoyed by her presence, she would occasionally reveal a faint smile. All of her thoughts were focused on her cultivation, but every day she would think of her big brother Qin Yu. She would calculate how long he had been in seclusion and then draw a line in her heart. As Gu Ling thought about it, she finally understood why her big brother was able to possess such a formidable cultivation in such a short period of time. Putting aside talent and fortuitous encounters, his hard work should also be an important reason. Big brother Qin Yu was so fierce and yet he was still wholeheartedly cultivating. Of course, she had to be even more serious. Otherwise, when she was introduced to others in the future and they saw that Ling's cultivation was low, she feared they would laugh at her. I can't drag big brother Qin Yu down. The young girl held on to this naive and silly thought and cultivated even harder. Although her talent wasn't good, because of Qin Yu, all sorts of pills were specially provided to her and her cultivation rose by leaps and bounds. Soon, she would reach foundation establishment soon. On this day, she clenched her teeth and swallowed down 2 foundation establishment pills. There were violent fluctuations of magic power and Gu Ling's aura changed. She opened her eyes and a smile appeared on her pale face. She had built her foundation. The door was pushed open from the outside. Senior sister, Xian, and the others rushed into the room with nervous expressions. Ling, are you all right? Gu Linger weakly smiled. I'm fine. I feel very good right now. Humph. No matter how I look at it, you don't look well. Qin Yu appeared with a cold expression. As he saw Gu Ling's pale face, he couldn't help but warm up. He quickly walked over and sat down on the edge of the bed. What are you trying to be brave for? If you can't break through, then just prepare for a while more. When the conditions are right, success will follow naturally. Why do you have to suffer like this? He had once experienced forcefully breaking through to foundation establishment, so he was well aware of the pain it brought. At that time, even he had to struggle to support himself, much less Gu Ling. Gu Ling was pleasantly surprised. Big brother Qin you came. Only then did she realize that he was angry. She stuck out her tongue and smiled. I'm fine. I'm really fine now. Don't worry. Qin Yu grasped her hand and probed her body. After determining that she had only been struck by the shock of magic power and her meridians had been slightly damaged, he relaxed a little. Just this once. Don't do it again. And I'll listen to big brother Qin Yu. The senior apprentice sister, Xian, and the others glanced at each other, all of them able to see the envy in each other's eyes. They had already learned from Gu Ling about her true relationship with Qin Yu. Although they weren't blood siblings, their feelings for each other far surpassed that. To have such a big brother was simply too lucky. The girls quietly retreated, giving them some space to be alone. Qin Yu accompanied Gu Ling and spoke a few words. This girl was trying her best to stay awake. Qin Yu could see that she was tired, so he had her close her eyes and rest for a while. Gu Ling shook her head. After he promised that he wouldn't leave, she sweetly smiled and closed her eyes, soon falling asleep. In her dreams, she was still holding on to Qin Yu's hand. Her pale face didn't have her usual smile, making her seem especially delicate and weak, making one feel pity for her. Qin Yu sighed inwardly. Water attribute magic power slowly entered Gu Ling's body, helping her repair her injuries. 6 hours later, Gu Ling opened her eyes, her mind brimming with energy. To her surprise, she discovered that all of her wounds had healed and her cultivation seemed to have stabilized. Thank you, big brother Qin Yu. Qin Yu waved his hand. There is no need for such things between us. He opened his hand, revealing a storage shell in his palm. This is something I brought back from the sea region. There are some pills inside that were specially prepared for you. When you cultivate in the future, feel free to use them. There will be more after a period of time. He paused for a moment and then said, You can continue to receive the pills from Immortal Eclipse Valley. As for the pills I gave you, don't tell anyone else, and it's best if you don't let anyone else use them. Do you understand? Gu Ling didn't fully understand, but since her big brother Qin Yu specifically reminded her, there must be a reason. She nodded, I understand, big brother Qin Yu. Qin Yu smiled and grasped her hand. All right, I have to go. The road of cultivation is like rowing a boat against the current. If you don't move forward, you will fall behind. This is my reminder to you. You must remember it in the future. Big brother Qin Yu. Gu Ling revealed a reluctant expression, but she soon nodded. I will remember. Hurry and leave. Don't think about coming back to see me in the future. Knowing that big brother Qin Yu is also in Immortal Eclipse Valley makes my heart feel much more at ease. Qin Yu revealed a bit of hesitation. He smiled without saying anything and stood up to leave. Gu Ling whispered, Big brother Qin Yu, even if you don't say it, I know that you are destined to soar through the highest heavens. How could you stay here forever? After visiting the 8th furnace station, Xing Zhongxiu hurriedly came out to see Pill Crucible. As he thought, he found that Pill Crucible was still in seclusion. This caused Qin Yu to feel that something was wrong. Could something have happened that he didn't know about? Otherwise, with Pill Crucible's lazy temperament, how could he suddenly become so earnest and diligent? Had he been stimulated by the demon monarch? Qin Yu thought about it and rejected this idea. The demon monarch had wanted to kill Pill Crucible for a long time. If he could really be stimulated, he would have worked hard all these years. Just as he was about to bid his farewells, the 10,000-foot mountain of the 8th furnace station suddenly shined with light. The phantom of a fire alligator appeared, angrily roaring at Qin Yu as it opened its jaws wide. Xing Zhongxiu was surprised. He couldn't figure out what was going on with the 8th furnace. As a furnace spirit, its sensing abilities were extremely sharp. Could it not know what Qin Yu's current cultivation was? Qin Yu smiled. He turned around and said, "There's nothing to be surprised about. When a brain is filled with hormones, it will always make some impulsive decisions without considering the consequences. And these kinds of decisions will often be regretted not long after." He looked up at the burning fire alligator. "Don't you think so?" The fire alligator shrank its head back and continued to roar. The anger in its voice had mostly faded away, replaced with a feeling of grievance and helplessness. As if it were saying that Qin Yu didn't keep his word and didn't keep his promise. Qin Yu lightly coughed. He lifted his hand and the fleeting flame furnace appeared. The fire alligator's eyes brightened and it leapt forwards, but it was immediately sent flying away. But looking at its appearance, it was clearly even more excited. It didn't seem to be sad at all. It turned around and rushed forwards again. Xing Zhongxiu bitterly smiled. He finally remembered that the 8th furnace in his hands had an incomparably lecherous furnace spirit. In the past, when Qin Yu had forced it to submit, he had used this same move. How could he have forgotten? However, looking at the scene in front of him, he really felt very shameful. The fleeting flame cauldron's face was filled with arrogance. The fire crocodile's tail was wagging like a flower as it circled around the cauldron with a thirsty appearance. Qin Yu rubbed his nose. A dirty thought rose up in his mind. 2 hard furnaces, even if they were together, what could they do? It was a rigorous, complicated, and inexplicable problem. "Brother Qin, what should we do?" He was currently refining a pill and needed the cooperation of the 8th furnace. But looking at its current appearance, it was clear he couldn't count on it. Qin Yu smiled. "I'll leave the fleeting flame furnace behind. I promised it in the past." Ignoring the fleeting flame furnace, he turned and walked away. "After some time, I'll come and take you away." He thought to himself, your resentful attitude is not very trustworthy. If you weren't addicted to torturing the fire alligators, would you have been so gentle? Clearly, he was enjoying it. I'll just take it as helping him achieve his goal. Qin Yu returned to the pill disposal department. Chao Han had already prepared a tea table and tea set. His cultivation had broken through to the 6th level of Golden Core and he could step into the late Golden Core realm at any moment. "I won't drink tea today. Maybe next time." Chao Han was a bit disappointed. He respectfully bowed, yes. He stepped into the pill disposal department and looked up at the boundless curtain of swords. Suddenly, a voice sounded out in his ears, "You've returned." It was a cold and light voice. Although it was gentle, it didn't make one feel any fluctuations. Qin Yu's eyebrows rose up. He turned and said, "Miss Spirity, how are you?" Spirity nodded. "The soul mushroom is already 100 years old. How did you do it?" Qin Yu already had an understanding of her temperament. To put it nicely, she was frank, but to put it bluntly, she was stupid and naive. If you knew this secret, then you should know it. If you casually said it out loud, then why would you want to know the reason? Why should I tell you? But the origin of it all came from Spirity's advice. If so, then Qin Yu owed her a great favor. He thought for a moment and said, "Not too long ago, I went to the sea region and obtained a type of soul bead there. It is bred from a powerful departed soul, and after the soul mushroom absorbed it, it underwent a transformation." Sea region. Spirity whispered. After several breaths of time, she looked up, her eyes earnest. "You will go to the sea region again, right?" Chinyu furrowed his eyebrows and nodded. "Then you will definitely think of a way to obtain more soul beads. In other words, the soul mushroom has a high chance of transforming into 1,000 years old." Spirity's eyes were deep. "I must remind you that when the soul mushroom transforms into 1,000 years old, it will need to absorb a massive amount of spiritual strength. The amount will far surpass your imagination. So, I hope you can prepare yourself early." Qin Yu's eyes narrowed. Just who is Miss Spirity and how does she know about these things? When it came to the soul mushroom, not even Pill Crucible knew much. This girl in front of him was far too mysterious. Spirity lightly said, "When the soul mushroom matures, you will know." She turned and left. After several steps, she vanished from sight. These words sounded a bit familiar. Looking at the direction she left in, Qin Yu's thoughts raced. A moment later, his mind shook as he thought of a possibility. After hesitating for a long time, he took a deep breath and suppressed his thoughts. It was useless to make any more guesses now. When the time came in the future, the results would naturally become clear. Chapter 2:14. Time could not be let down, time could not be controlled. It existed everywhere, yet no life form could touch it. When the leaves of the green trees outside fell to the ground and new buds grew out, a year had already passed. Immortal Eclipse Valley was still the #1 sect of the Southern Empire. Their conflict with the demonic path didn't affect their status at all. Every day, a massive amount of alchemy materials were constantly sent into Immortal Eclipse Valley. Most of them were successfully refined and then sold through Immortal Eclipse Valley's channels. But there were also some that failed and were sent to the pill disposal department. Everyone knew that a useless pill was an extremely frightening thing. Only through professional decomposition methods could it be completely destroyed and prevented from harming the world. However, what left the cultivators of Immortal Eclipse Valley especially puzzled was how Junior Granduncle Qin had managed to survive in an environment filled with waste pills. Although this wasn't the first time, they were still incomparably surprised. Many people wanted to know just what Junior Granduncle Qin was doing inside. But as long as they thought this and put it into practice, they would soon keep their mouths shut. No matter how many times others asked them, they wouldn't say a single word. Gradually, even though no one said it out loud, everyone became aware that Junior Granduncle Qin and the pill disposal department were a new taboo within the valley. But while this could suppress the cultivators of Immortal Eclipse Valley from trying to investigate, it couldn't eliminate the curiosity in their hearts. Instead, as time passed, this curiosity became increasingly intense. Some people said that Junior Granduncle Qin was cultivating some supernatural power and needed to borrow the power of pill toxins. Because it was extremely dangerous and he couldn't be disturbed, he refused to investigate. Others said that Junior Granduncle Qin was tempering his body, using pill toxins to transform his body into a 10,000 poison body so that he could be immune to all poisons in the world. This was a funny story and very few people believed it. But, it was the only one that was slightly close to the truth. After all, the little blue lamp expelled pill toxins and compressed them into his fingers. This could barely be considered cultivating a poison body. Of course, if they knew that Qin Yu, who had been guessed countless times, was actually using waste pills as materials to refine pills, their jaws would drop open. Ever since the fleeting flame furnace was placed in the 8th furnace station, he hadn't taken it back. Now, he was using one of his cheap senior apprentice brother's treasures and the effects were acceptable. Qin Yu had always paid attention to cultivating his own alchemy skills. Although he couldn't be considered a great alchemist, his strength wasn't bad. Moreover, he only needed to guarantee that the pill would take shape. He didn't have any requirements for the quality, and the refining efficiency and success rate were both decent. It was enough for his cultivation needs as well as to satisfy Gu Ling's needs. Strengthening star pills, magic power enhancing pills, and blood energy pills that nourish the mortal body. These three types of pills made up the majority of what Qin Yu refined. He lifted a hand and the pill furnace opened with a loud bang. 13 star pills hauled out. Qin Yu flicked his sleeves and placed them into a jade bottle. After resting for a while, Zhang Xian took out the materials and continued forging. The pill concoction this time had already lasted for 5 days. A large number of pills were placed in jade bottles, densely packed on the ground. This was because he was preparing to attack the nascent soul realm and he would inevitably consume a great deal of pills. Only by making sufficient preparations could he avoid the embarrassing situation of having no pills to swallow. Of course, Qin Yu was well aware that it was impossible for him to successfully make a breakthrough. First, he had a clear understanding of his own talent, and second, it was because of the demon body. Yu Qi had clearly told him that the demon body possessed an extremely tyrannical attribute. It didn't allow magic power to surpass its strength. Thus, if he wanted to reach nascent soul, he would need to find demon blood that could help the demon body advance. This wasn't easy. Perhaps Yu Qi could provide some help, but after they parted ways in the land of sealed demons, she had vanished without a trace and no one knew where she went. Let's not talk about this for now. At the very least, it seemed that failing to break into nascent soul also had its advantages. This was the experience that Qin Yu obtained after failing to break into Golden Core in the past, purifying his magic power. Every time he failed to make a breakthrough, his magic power would experience a qualitative leap. Although the increase wasn't too great, he couldn't do it too many times. Just thinking about it, if he failed 10 or 20 times in a row, the quality of Qin Yu's magic power would inevitably reach an astonishing degree. This could be called a blessing in misfortune, a blessing in tragedy. Of course, the only person who had the qualifications to obtain such a blessing was Qin Yu for the time being. Another 5 days passed. Qin Yu opened his eyes. He lifted a bottle of pills and swallowed them down. Star pills, blood energy pills, all sorts of pills. In any case, there was no chance for him to make a breakthrough, so eating all of them wouldn't affect him. With pills in his life, there was no need to explain how heroic and valiant he was. Of course, Qin Yu wouldn't admit that there was a trace of anticipation in his heart. If he tried to break into nascent soul through his soul, magic power, and mortal body, what if he could? Even if the chances were slim to none, as long as he could try it, he would try it. Within his Dantian Sea, atop the great Tao base, white, black, blue, red, and yellow golden cores erupted with dazzling light. The 5 colors wildly circulated, transforming into a dazzling ring of light that gathered all 5 colors together. Bang! A powerful aura broke out from his body. His black robes fluttered in the wind and the 5 elemental magic power within his body tumbled like a tide. Every time it rose and fell, it emitted heaven-shaking rumbling sounds. It was like there were several great rivers hidden within his body. Chao Han's expression was silent, just like he had been these past years. He had calmly and solemnly guarded the pill disposal department. But at this time, those familiar with him could see that Chao Han was absent-minded. This was an extremely rare occurrence for him. With a sufficiently strong will, he was able to control his emotions. It was just that junior Uncle Qin hadn't come out for a long time. In truth, it hadn't been too long. It had only been a week longer than usual. But, junior Uncle Qin had always been a very disciplined person. Every month he would come out to boil tea and drink it. Then, he would quietly go to the little bamboo grove. That was his entire day. Suddenly, several noises entered his ears. Chao Han looked up, a bit of coldness in his eyes. He could clearly hear that someone was coming in. Did they not know that the pill disposal department had become a forbidden land? Or were there some people who couldn't hold themselves back and wanted to stir up some trouble? However, what was unexpected was that the one who came was a young girl. Her small face was filled with nervousness. I know I shouldn't have come, but I'm worried. Big Brother Qin hasn't been here for over a week. Could you please tell me where he is right now? Chao Han was startled and instantly understood who this person was. He stepped forwards and said, "How insolent. Don't be rude to Miss Gu Ling, He squeezed out a bit and revealed a stiff smile. He cupped his hands together and said, "Miss Ling, how do you do? My name is Chao Han and I am responsible for guarding the pill disposal department." Gu Ling, respectfully bowed. "Greetings, Senior Chao. I have heard Big Brother Qin mention you before. Do you know where he has gone?" Chao Han said, "Junior uncle hasn't come out yet. He should have been delayed by something. Miss Ling should also know that there are always unexpected situations when cultivators cultivate. Please rest assured." Gu Ling nodded. But there was clearly a bit more worry in her eyes. She actually hoped that Big Brother Qin had already come out and just hadn't gone to see her. After all, this was the pill disposal department. Ever since she learned that Big Brother Qin was in seclusion here, she had deliberately inquired about it and knew how dangerous and terrifying it was. Big Brother Qin. He didn't come out. Could it be that something happened to him? As this thought appeared, it was like a great invisible hand grasped Gu Ling's heart, causing her face to pale. After hesitating again and again, she bowed. "Senior Chao, I know that it is presumptuous of me to say this, but I hope that you can agree to let me go in and take a look. I am worried that something has happened to Big Brother Qin." Chao Han's heart warmed. He thought that it was no wonder Junior Uncle valued his little sister so highly. The feelings between them were truly deep. But he revealed an awkward expression. "Miss Ling, although I know that Junior Uncle wouldn't refuse to let you enter, the pill disposal department is not like other places. It is far too dangerous, so I cannot let you in." Gu Ling gripped her fists. But I... She lowered her head for several breaths of time. Then, she flashed a token. Chao Han's complexion changed. He bowed and said, "Chao Han greets the elder." In Immortal Eclipse Valley, elders were all golden cores, but golden cores weren't necessarily elders. Although their cultivations were at the same boundary, their statuses differed greatly. Gu Ling was a bit nervous. "I apologize, Senior Chao. But I order you to open the entrance to the pill disposal department." Chao Han frowned. With the status of an elder, he had the qualifications to enter the pill disposal department. But if something were to happen to Gu Ling, because of this, Junior Uncle might not listen to his explanations. As he was in a dilemma, his complexion changed. He looked up into the skies. At the same time, all the golden core and above cultivators in Immortal Eclipse Valley revealed shocked expressions as they looked up into the skies. Faint traces of black clouds gushed out from nothingness. As they wove together, the clear and bright skies began to darken and obscure. This was heavenly tribulation. Every cultivator that reached golden core had experienced the baptism of pill tribulation before, so they were more sensitive to its aura. The black clouds in front of them emitted an invisible pressure. This was the aura of heavenly tribulation, but why wasn't there any thunder? It wasn't just thunder, but there was also no other sound. If it weren't for the pressure that fell down, it would have seemed like an illusion. The invisible pressure filled the air, becoming increasingly strong. Gradually, it was like a great stone was pressing down on their chests, making it difficult to breathe. Then, the eyes of the golden core cultivators began to change, revealing looks of envy and awe. The only thing that could make them feel this way was nascent soul heavenly tribulation. Someone in the valley was about to break into nascent soul. But who was the one breaking through? Why hadn't they heard any news of this before? Could it be that there were still people who didn't make any preparations before crossing tribulation? Did they want to commit suicide? There was no need to think about it. They needed to hurry over and take a look. Nascent soul heavenly tribulation wasn't common, and for them to feel it ahead of time was a rare experience that would be greatly beneficial to them when crossing tribulation in the future. Whoosh, whoosh, figures shot up into the skies, flying towards the heavenly tribulation. When the golden cores arrived, they discovered that the people in the valley had arrived even earlier than them. Jiangli, Daoist Wang, Eclipse Lenqing, and Eclipse Wuji, the four great nascent souls, had gathered together. Everyone bowed and respectfully stood to the side. Some people looked up and saw where the tribulation clouds had locked onto. Their complexions immediately changed and they had strange looks in their eyes. This is the pill disposal department. Chao Han was here, and with his cultivation, it was impossible for him to summon heavenly tribulation. Then, who was it? This thought drilled into the minds of countless people. Then, in the next moment, they all thought of a name, Junior Uncle Qin. Everyone knew that their junior uncle was currently in seclusion at the pill disposal department. Besides him, who else could it be? They actually believed that their junior uncle's personality had changed. They were simply too young and inexperienced. One didn't even need to think about it to know that such a troublesome person like him, how could he possibly be so quiet after returning to Immortal Eclipse Valley? So he had been holding back his ultimate move. Chapter 2:15. Wasn't it said that Junior Uncle had reached nascent soul a long time ago? How could he be crossing tribulation now? Or, had he made another breakthrough? Countless people were frightened. They comforted themselves and told themselves not to think of all these random things. This was absolutely impossible. Daoist Wang frowned. He turned and said, "This heavenly tribulation is a bit strange." Jiangli had a light expression. Something is wrong. Eclipse Lenqing and Eclipse Wuji didn't have a good relationship with Qin Yu. When they heard that he had reached nascent soul, they had been dealt a heavy blow. But as they saw this today, they were secretly delighted and gratified, but they were also puzzled. This aura is undoubtedly nascent soul heavenly tribulation, but it isn't complete. Eclipse Wuji slowly said, "It seems as if it only has a part of the attributes of heavenly tribulation." Daoist Wang clapped his hands. "That's right, that's exactly what I mean." He looked up at the black clouds and mumbled, "This brat, he's too good at stirring things up. How come everything becomes abnormal when it comes to him?" Gu Ling stood in the crowd. She was a bit happy that her big brother Qin Yu was fine right now. But as she looked at the gathering black clouds, she couldn't help but worry that something would happen to him under the heavenly tribulation. As if feeling the young girl's worry, the tribulation clouds in the skies began to dissipate without warning. The speed was extremely fast, and after several breaths of time, they completely vanished from sight. This time, everyone, including the four nascent soul cultivators, were dumbfounded. They had only ever heard of heavenly tribulation descending, but they had never seen heavenly tribulation appear and then vanish. Please, this was crossing tribulation, a very solemn and sacred matter. To cultivators, this was a test of life and death. How come it felt as if it were some sort of child's play? Since when could heavenly tribulation be played around like this? Eclipse Lenqing and Eclipse Wuji were left speechless. As for Daoist Wang and Jiangli, they revealed a thoughtful look. They knew that Qin Yu had swallowed heavenly tribulation, so it didn't seem strange at all for him to cause such a scene. The heavenly tribulation was gone. The golden cores glanced at each other in dismay. They sighed inwardly, thinking that junior Uncle Qin Yu was truly extraordinary. But at the same time, they were also helpless at his anticlimactic actions. They thought that junior uncle had been too involved this time. Zhongli swept his gaze over them and said indifferently, "All right, since there's nothing else, you can all disperse." The Jindan stage cultivators thought to themselves, how could he be fine? We're really curious. However, they only thought about it in their hearts. No one dared to say it out loud, so they bowed and retreated. Eclipse Lenqing frowned. His intuition told him that Zhongli and Daoist Wang definitely knew something. He thought for a moment and said, "Do you two know what is going on?" Daoist Wang laughed. "Eclipse Lenqing, you must be joking. We're all standing here, so who knows what happened? If you're curious, wait for Qin Yu to come out and ask him." Eclipse Lenqing's complexion sank. Although he had given up all thoughts of dealing with Qin Yu, it was impossible for him to speak on his own initiative. He coldly snorted and walked away. Daoist Wang curled his lips. What kind of person is this? I gave him an idea and he doesn't appreciate it, but he even has such a scowl on his face. It's not like I owe you anything. Zhao Wuji revealed a helpless expression. He cupped his hands and left. Hey, they've all left. Should we go in and take a look? Daoist Wang winked. Cough cough, don't look at me like that. I'm not curious, I just want to make sure that Qin Yu is all right. Zhongli thought for a moment and nodded. Then let's take a look. Gu Ling bit her lips. Seniors, can you bring me along? Zhongli frowned. Stay close to me lest you be infected by pill toxins. Facing Zhongli and Daoist Wang, Chao Han naturally didn't dare to stop them. He respectfully bowed and drew to the side. Gu Ling was a bit nervous. She followed behind Zhongli and stepped into the pill disposal department. The scene in front of her changed. It was a barren and deathly silent scene. A faint sword intent spread out, wrapping around her. All of the pill toxins that approached were twisted and erased. Cough cough, you're here. Qin Yu sat down on a rock, his face pale. Gu Ling revealed a warm smile. How come you also came in? It's too dangerous. Gu Ling looked at the corners of his lips. There was still some blood that hadn't been wiped clean. Her eyes reddened and she covered her mouth. Big brother Qin Yu, what happened to you? Qin Yu smiled. I'm fine. I just had a little accident when I was cultivating. Don't cry, don't cry. My body is very good and this little wound will soon heal. Zhongli looked at him deeply, shaking in the depths of his eyes. It was clear he had realized something. He said, while you are recovering, let's leave this place first. Qin Yu didn't refuse. Okay. He wiped away Gu Ling's tears. Let's go. Why are you still crying? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? Gu Ling squeezed out a smile and reached out a hand to support him. Qin Yu smiled and let her be. It was good to be able to feel more at ease. Chao Han hurried over to greet him. He was clearly shaken by the news of his junior uncle's injuries. Without further delay, after sending him away, the group returned to the small bamboo grove. The environment here was quiet and secluded. It was a good place to rest. After saying some words and finding an excuse to eat porridge, Qin Yu sent Gu Ling away. Then, he leaned back on the bed. If you want to ask, then ask. It looks like you're having a hard time holding it in. Daoist Wang impatiently asked, you haven't broken into nascent soul. Qin Yu nodded. This straightforwardness caused his eyes to widen and the corners of his lips to twitch. His expression became increasingly strange. In Snowfall City, they had seen Qin Yu fight with their own eyes. If he was able to directly confront Lu Ji, then at least he had the strength of a middle nascent soul. But now, he was saying that he hadn't crossed tribulation to break into nascent soul. If this were a joke then it would be fine, but the key point was that this was the truth. Jiang Li's eyes shined. Is it the 5-element sword diagram? Since he had already admitted it, there was no point in hiding it. Qin Yu nodded again. Of course, he didn't say the specifics. The two of them had their own sense of propriety. Although they were curious and didn't ask too much, what they knew was enough to shock them. At the Golden Core realm, he was able to contend with a middle nascent soul. They didn't doubt that Qin Yu had the strength to break into nascent soul. At that time, just how fierce would he be? Looking at the entire world, perhaps only super powerhouses like the Valley Master or the Demon Monarch would be able to barely contend with him. Thinking about it further, once Qin Yu's cultivation reached the middle nascent soul realm or even the late nascent soul realm, just who in this vast world would be his match? This brat, just thinking about it was terrifying. Qin Yu bitterly smiled. In this world, where there is gain, there is loss. The difficulty for me to break into nascent soul is over 10 times that of an ordinary cultivator. Don't think too much about it. As Daoist Wang and Jiang Li heard this, they felt as if the world had returned to normal. You brat, it's about time you encountered some difficulties, otherwise how would ordinary cultivators like us live? Daoist Wang said, indignant. To force a nascent soul into calling himself an ordinary cultivator, there was no one else besides Qin Yu who could do this. Jiang Li's words were simple and direct. If it is because of the 5-element sword diagram, I might be able to help you a little. If you need anything, you can look for me at any time. Qin Yu smiled and nodded. All right, we won't disturb your rest any longer. Rest in peace and recover from your injuries. Jiang Li and Daoist Wang stood up and bid their farewells. Soon after, Gu Ling returned with a bowl of fragrant porridge. If it was just porridge, it wouldn't have taken so long. She had deliberately waited until the two of them arrived before returning. In the end, she was an extremely intelligent girl. How could she not understand the ways of the world? 3 days later, Qin Yu allowed Gu Ling to carefully examine him. He even restrained his magic power and allowed her weak magic power to enter his body to investigate, proving that he wasn't lying. After Gu Ling opened her mouth and took back her magic power, Qin Yu smiled. How is it? I didn't lie, right? My injuries have already healed. I have to go back and continue cultivating. Gu Ling was surprised, but what was even more surprised were Daoist Wang and Jiang Li. As nascent soul cultivators, they naturally knew that Qin Yu's injuries weren't normal. If others were able to barely recover in a month, that would be considered good. But what about him? All in all, it had been 3 days. Daoist Wang whispered to himself, this brat, he is simply a freak. This time, Jiang Li nodded with rare seriousness. To be able to cultivate the 5-element sword diagram and contain so much magic power, it was normal for Qin Yu's mortal body to be powerful. But the more powerful one's mortal body was, the more troublesome it would be to recover from any damage. Qin Yu's abnormal recovery ability in 3 days was something that even he found hard to believe. Qin Yu returned to the pill disposal department once more. This matter quickly spread throughout Immortal Eclipse Valley, setting off a massive storm. Countless cultivators sighed with emotion. Junior Uncle was indeed Junior Uncle, he was so strong that he had no friends. But soon, their attention was drawn by another matter. This was because heavenly tribulation had come again. The reason why the word again was used was because it was happening in the pill disposal department, and it was exactly the same as the last heavenly tribulation. Just what was Junior Uncle doing? A moment later, the tribulation cloud vanished from sight. Everyone's eyes widened. They looked at each other, unsure of what to say. However, the most powerful ability in the world was habit. Even something like heavenly tribulation would appear every once in a while. The cultivators in Immortal Eclipse Valley calmed down. At most, they glanced towards the pill disposal department. Oh, Junior Uncle has come again. Hoot, strong winds rose. Woo, black clouds gathered. Schwa, pressure descended. An alchemist's hand shook and he nearly ruined a furnace of good pills. He steadied his thoughts and continued to toss in the materials. After the pills were finished, he helplessly said, "Everyone, how many times has it been?" 3 times in the first month, 2 times in the second month, and 1 time last month. That's a total of 6 times. Another alchemist said, his face filled with helplessness. Last month, he had encountered the aura of heavenly tribulation when he was refining a furnace of pills and he had nearly blown it up. Of course, in the end he had still failed. This wasn't an exception. Because of 6 heavenly tribulations, the number of materials destroyed in Immortal Eclipse Valley was much greater than in the past. When everyone refined precious pills, they all chose to do it after Junior Uncle had just crossed tribulation. Perhaps calling it crossing tribulation wasn't appropriate, but that was the meaning. As long as they understood it in their hearts, it was fine. 6 heavenly tribulations. I really wondered just how long Junior Uncle can keep tossing and turning for. I heard that someone opened a betting line and the highest bet was 10 times. I also know that. Moreover, I made a small bet so I didn't dare to bet as fiercely as 10 times. I chose 8 times. I chose 9 times. It seems like everyone is very confident in Junior Marshall Uncle. What nonsense, that's Junior Uncle we are talking about. Another 2 months later, the 7th heavenly tribulation. Another 5 months later, the 8th heavenly tribulation. Another 7 months later, the 9th heavenly tribulation. Another year later, the 10th heavenly tribulation. Then, there was no then. Qin Yu was lying on the bed, his entire body wrapped in bandages. As he faced the tearful Gu Ling, he had no choice but to promise that he wouldn't cross tribulation again. Jiang Li's eyes shined with a sharp light. He was incomparably surprised that Qin Yu was able to survive with such serious injuries. This time, it took Qin Yu over half a year to barely recover. Even so, he was still crowned with the title of an undying cockroach. In the words of Daoist Wang, this boy was a monster in human skin. It was said that the Immortal Eclipse Valley cultivator who bet 10 times was later titled the Gambling God. He had won so much that he was filled to the brim. His gratitude towards Junior Uncle Qin Yu was like the flowing waters of the Yangtze River, flowing without end. Last night, Qin Yu had a fever and nearly spent the entire night tossing and turning. Today, he simply didn't have the energy to write, so he only wrote 1 chapter. The doctor said that he had a lung infection. As his parents, they were distressed and worried and hoped that he would get better as soon as possible. Moreover, he still owed everyone 4 chapters. Chapter 2:16. Strong Qin decided to leave. When this thought appeared in his mind, nearly 4 years had passed since he returned to Immortal Eclipse Valley. With the help of Immortal Eclipse Valley's pill disposal department, his 5-element golden cores had all reached perfection. After failing 10 times to make a breakthrough, there was no need to mention the process, but the results were excellent. Strong Qin was still a golden core, but he had gathered the 5-element magic swords and his magic power had nearly doubled. The difference between his strength and that of 4 years ago was like the heavens and earth. If he fought with Lu Ji again, while he might not be able to destroy him, it wouldn't be difficult to defeat him. Now, strong Qin, fine, it wasn't too easy to say, so he changed it back. Qin Yu stood at the threshold of a breakthrough. Just one more step and he would reach Nascent Soul. From Golden Core to Nascent Soul, that was a transformation for others, but to Qin Yu, that was the disparity between the heavens and earth. As long as he could reach Nascent Soul, Qin Yu would have the confidence to look down on all life in this world. He wouldn't even need to fear the demon monarch or the whale sovereign. All he needed to do was take the final step. But at the same time, Qin Yu was well aware just how difficult it was to take this step. Disregarding the difficulty of simultaneously breaking through to Nascent Soul with 5 golden cores, just the demon blood he needed to take another step in his demon body would be difficult to find. Qin Yu had no clue where to go. But, he knew that there was a place in this world that held the most secrets. After comforting Gu Ling, he took the fleeting flame furnace from the 8th furnace station. Of course, he couldn't help but beat up the fire alligator during the process. Pill Crucible remained in seclusion. Qin Yu revealed a bit of worry. His cheap senior apprentice brother's abnormal actions left him anxious. He asked Daoist Wang and Zhongli, but they also indicated that they didn't know anything. But Zhongli's words made Qin Yu feel a bit more at ease. Perhaps the Valley Master's cultivation is about to make a breakthrough. Pill Crucible was a 9th-level Nascent Soul super powerhouse with a profound cultivation. Just one more step and he would reach the legendary Divine Soul Realm. When one reached this boundary, their soul wouldn't perish and they could exist for all eternity, the same as breaking free from the limits of one's lifespan. As he thought about how he had been trapped in the 9th level for so many years, it wasn't impossible for him to make a breakthrough in a single go, especially after being stimulated by him. Thinking about it, Qin Yu suppressed this thought. He bid farewell to Daoist Wang and quietly left Immortal Eclipse Valley. Watching his figure fade away, Daoist Wang sighed. Brother Jiang, do you think the next time we meet this boy will he have reached Nascent Soul? Zhongli thought about it. I don't know. If it were someone else who wanted to break through to the Nascent Soul level in such a short time, I would only sneer and say that they were courting death. But Qin Yu couldn't be viewed with common sense. I won't hide it from Brother Jiang, but after being in contact with him for so long, I always feel as if all my years of cultivation have been wasted on a dog's body. This really leaves me feeling helpless. Daoist Wang bitterly smiled. Let's not talk about this anymore. How melancholic. He turned around to leave. Zhongli said faintly, I feel the same way. But old Wang, even if you pretend to be calm and indifferent, I will still bring up our bet about Qin Yu crossing tribulation. When will those jugs of wine of yours be delivered? Daoist Wang staggered. Su Qing walked out of the brothel and looked back at the beauty who was weakly leaning against the window and waving at him. A sinister smile appeared on his face. He walked the path of a body cultivator. To be able to achieve Jindan was already a heaven-defying luck. If there were no accidents in this life, it would basically be like this. With no path of cultivation, he decided to indulge in the pleasures of life. He joined the 100 Mountains sect and became an elder. Every year, he received a massive amount of offerings and enjoyed delicious food, wine, and beautiful women. In particular, the latter. As a body cultivator with a powerful mortal body, not just anyone could withstand the strength and endurance of his sprint. Even these female cultivators who specialized in sexual techniques would have their eyes glazed over and they would cry out in pain. This left old Su feeling extremely satisfied. In the great battle last night, that woman was truly worthy of being a famous courtesan. Her various methods were top-notch and she even seemed to understand some mind-bewitching techniques. If it weren't for his rich experience and formidable combat strength, he feared he would have been utterly defeated. Luckily, in the end, he was able to preserve his title as the Golden Spear Doesn't Fall. Just as he was thinking about spending several days recuperating and then looking for her to fight again, he suddenly heard the sound of wind behind him. Su Cheng's eyes flashed with a cold light. Just which blind fool dared to touch him? They were simply seeking death. Before he finished his thoughts, his field of vision darkened and he slumped to the ground. A moment later, Su Cheng walked out from a remote alley. He looked up to determine the direction and then quickly left. Heaven-Seek Pavilion. The massive signboard and the towering building still exuded an imposing aura. Su Cheng looked up and walked in. Soon, a buxom female cultivator welcomed him. She bowed and said, "Junior greets Senior Su." It seemed they knew each other. Su Cheng frowned. He lightly said, "I have some questions I would like to ask you." The female cultivator gestured. "Senior, please follow me." After entering the private room, the female cultivator closed the door. Her eyes turned moist and her voice was so sweet that it was numbing. "Senior Su, did you bring me a gift this time?" As she spoke, she threw him a flirtatious look and leaned over. Her weapon ravaged his arm, causing him to stiffen for a moment before composing himself. "Miss, the reason I came here today is for proper business." It would have been better if he hadn't said anything. But as soon as he mentioned proper business, the female cultivator blushed even redder and shyly said, "Last time we were here, you said it was proper business and then you." "Senior Su, you are so bad, you did that on purpose, right?" Su Cheng revealed an embarrassed look. Luckily, there was a sudden knock on the door, helping Su Cheng out of trouble. The female cultivator quickly let go and opened the door. The one who walked in was a middle-aged beautiful woman. There were faint crow's feet at the corners of her eyes and her body was full and full. She exuded a charming charm and her gentle smile made one feel close to her. "Fellow Daoist Su, it's been a long time. How have you been?" The beautiful woman had a familiar expression. Su Cheng nodded, not saying anything. The beautiful woman waved her hand. "You may leave. I will personally entertain fellow Daoist Su." The female cultivator hurriedly nodded and closed the door. The beautiful woman sat down across from him. She smiled and said, "Fellow Daoist Su, what business do you have today?" As she spoke of proper business, there was a dignified look on her face. It contrasted with her temperament and made her seem especially dignified. Su Cheng coughed. "I would like to ask about how to break into nascent soul with more than one golden core. Also, because of certain reasons, I need some high-quality demon blood. Please remember that it is high quality, I only want the best. I wonder if Heaven-Seek Pavilion has any information about this." The beautiful woman revealed a look of surprise, as if she never thought Su Cheng would ask such a question. She thought for a moment and said, "Fellow Daoist Su, please wait a moment. I will need to inquire before I can give you a reply." Su Cheng stretched out a hand. "Please go ahead." The beautiful woman straightened her body and bowed. Her two creases formed a deep crevice as she stood up and left the private room. Soon, the beautiful woman arrived in front of the black cabin. "Master, someone came today to inquire about something. This servant thinks there is something strange and asks you to investigate it." As she spoke, she handed over a red jade slip with 2 questions inside. Several years ago, she received a notice that no matter who it was, if they asked about breaking through to Golden Core, they had to immediately report it to their superiors. In these years, including today, this had only happened twice. The first time was when a Golden Core cultivator left Heaven-Seek Pavilion and soon vanished without a trace, never appearing again. She didn't know who did it and she didn't want to know why. She only remembered that she had to do what she had to do. After several breaths of time, the red jade slip floated up on its own. As it touched the black cabin, it seemed to fall into a pool of water, vanishing in layers of ripples. See. An unknown distance away, on top of a mountain shrouded in fog, a black wooden house stood there. A gust of wind seemed to stir the air, causing it to distort. Then, layers upon layers of illusions appeared around the black wooden house. Suddenly, from one of the phantoms of the black cabin, a blood-red jade slip flew out. It fell into the hands of a young man in a woven rush raincoat who was fishing in a nearby creek. He flipped through it and suddenly chuckled. In stark contrast to his youthful appearance, his voice was old and hoarse, filled with a heavy lethargy. Have you already sensed something? You really are a quick-witted junior. It seems you've succeeded. A 5-element nascent soul is enough to move one's heart, much less someone like you who has an extremely high chance of successfully cultivating the demon body. How perfect! What a generous gift from the heavens. In such a difficult time, you have actually been delivered to me. I will definitely help you fulfill your wish as soon as possible. The beautiful woman waited in silence. Suddenly, her complexion changed. She looked up at the cabin and saw a figure slowly step out from the ripples. This was a handsome young man. He had a lazy smile on his face and his eyes were warm and clear. The beautiful woman fell to her knees. This servant greets master. The young man waved his hand. Bring me to see him. The beautiful woman respectfully nodded. She lowered her head and led the way. Along the way, she encountered cultivators from Heavenseek Pavilion who all had puzzled expressions. This was because in their eyes, there was no figure of this young man. Pushing open the door to the private room, the beautiful woman stepped to the side. Master, this servant will stand guard outside. The young man smiled and nodded. He stepped forwards. Su Qing frowned. He coldly looked at him. But what surprised him was that he didn't feel the least bit of vigilance when facing this uninvited guest. His smiling eyes could dissolve any hostility. As long as he looked at you, you would let down all your guards. How strange. Su Qing took a deep breath. Who are you? The young man smiled and sat down. Who I am isn't important. What is important is that I can give you the information you want, right? Su Cheng's complexion changed. Don't be nervous. Sit. The young man gestured. Su Qing furrowed his eyebrows. He sat down and straightened his back. The young man didn't care. He went straight to the point. I will answer your first question first. It is about multiple golden core breakthroughs. If I'm not wrong, what you want to know should be related to the 5-element golden cores. Su Cheng's frown deepened. He immediately relaxed and said, Heavenseek Pavilion is truly Heavenseek Pavilion. You are truly formidable and unfathomably deep. The young man's eyes brightened. The 5-element golden core breakthroughs and even the demon blood you need can all be solved in one place. But, you will need to wait because the time has not yet come. 1 year from now, come back here and I will tell you everything you want to know. Su Cheng's eyes were sharp. Then why did you come out today? Could it be that you only want to see me? The young man smiled and nodded. That's right, that's how it is. Remember, don't miss this 1 year. We will meet again at that time. He stood up and pushed open the door. Su Qing narrowed his eyes. After several breaths of time, he walked out of the private room. The beautiful woman was waiting outside. She respectfully said, Fellow Daoish Su, that person just now can represent our Heavenseek Pavilion. There is no need to doubt him. If there is nothing else, I will escort you out. Soon, Su Qing walked out of Heavenseek Pavilion. Moments later, he appeared in a remote alley in the city. He stopped and waited for a moment. He muttered, "Heavenseek Pavilion." He closed his eyes and slumped to the ground. It was some time before he opened his eyes again. His first reaction was to jump up and examine himself. He looked around and then left with a dark expression. Chapter 217. In a dense forest outside the city, Qin opened his eyes, exhaustion covering his face. As he thought, this method of forcefully controlling the mortal body wasn't something that could be casually used. He had deliberately chosen a body cultivator golden core with a relatively low soul cultivation, and yet the consumption was so terrifying. If it were any other cultivator, they would have long since collapsed. Moreover, the key point was that the disguise he had thought of didn't seem to work. Heavenseek Pavilion had directly recognized his identity. It was clear that it was because of those two problems. Or, it was more accurate to say that it was the problem of multiple golden cores breaking into nascent soul that exposed him. Heavenseek Pavilion seemed to pay a great deal of attention to him. Otherwise, how could they spend so much effort on him when they received countless cultivators every year? Just what was their goal? Qin Yu's complexion was heavy. He thought back to the young man that suddenly appeared. Although this person's attitude was gentle and he gave off a very good feeling, even a little intimate, Qin Yu still felt an inexplicable sense of dread. In particular, his eyes seemed to contain some sort of strength that could pierce into the deepest depths of one's heart. Who was this person? Qin Yu looked up at the distant city and then turned to leave. After several breaths of time, his figure vanished from sight. In front of a black cabin, a young man stood with his hands crossed behind his back. There was a light smile on his lips. It was clear he was in a good mood. A black-robed figure with only gray eyes quietly drilled out from the shadows. "Master, as you expected, he has already left." The young man smiled. My appearance made him feel restless. With his cautious temperament, it's normal for him to leave. But, as long as he wants to break into nascent soul, he will definitely return. Ghost, the perfect body I have been waiting for so many years is finally about to appear. I am so happy. Without warning, wrinkles began to appear on his handsome face. Then, they rapidly increased. Spots began to appear and his hair turned white like withered grass. It was like the flow of time suddenly accelerated. In several breaths of time, 100 years passed, 1,000 years passed. "Master. I'm fine." He waved his hand, his voice light. "Ghost, act according to the plan. This time, I will truly be reborn, no one can stop me." Qin Yu hesitated. His intuition told him that Heavenseek Pavilion had ill intentions. But, if he ignored them, there was no way he could find the method to reach nascent soul. This left him conflicted. But soon, after wasting some time on this matter, Qin Yu suppressed all his thoughts. No matter what, there was still a year left. Perhaps there would be a solution by then. Then how was he going to spend this 1 year? Qin Yu's cultivation had fallen into a bottleneck. After failing to break through 10 times, the purity of his magic power had reached the limit. Even with the power of the demon body, there would be major problems if he continued to make breakthroughs. When he broke into the Golden Core realm in the past, he had nearly died on the spot. It was only Yu Qi's appearance that saved his life. Qin Yu didn't think he would be so lucky this time. He had to put aside his cultivation. At most he could swallow pills to strengthen his soul and mortal body. But to wait like this for a year was undoubtedly a waste of time. Perhaps it was time to think of a way to resolve the hidden danger of the little blue lamp being extinguished. Qin Yu thought for a long time and finally made his decision. Several days later, facing the boundless sea, Qin Yu revealed a rueful expression. He never thought that after leaving for just 4 years, he would have to step into it again. But as Jiang Li said, the land wasn't suitable for him. The less people knew about the little blue lamp's secret, the better. The sea was the best choice. Experts of the sea claimed perhaps it wouldn't be long before the little blue lamp ate until it was stuffed to the brim. Shwa, with a flash of light, Qin Yu's figure burst out, soaring deep into the sea. Deep in the sea, a mountain range rose up from the seabed, towering and majestic. But what was most surprising was that above this seabed mountain range hung a giant full moon. As time passed, it waxed and waned. But whether or not it waned and waned, the bright moonlight shrouded this giant tribe that was built on the mountain. If one looked closer, they would discover that this full moon was actually a giant round stone polished into shape. It blended in with the mountain range, as if it had grown out from within. This was the most ancient inheritance of the sea region, the most formidable force, the moon-praying shrine that could even contend with the capital city. Their tribal camp was built along the mountain range. There were so many of them that one couldn't see the end of them. Compared to the capital city, it was much larger. With this mountain as the center, the surrounding 500,000 miles of sea region was the traditional sphere of influence of moon-praying shrine. Here, they were the supreme rulers. Even if it was an order from the capital city, without moon-praying shrine's permission, it could only be written on a piece of paper. Every year, countless caravans would arrive here, bringing treasures from all over the sea races to trade with this powerful tribe. At the same time, they would purchase special products and transport them to other parts of the sea region. Ever since the Lord Priest took charge and opened up free trade, he had also ordered the wolf riders to sweep through the main trade routes. Moon-praying shrine had clearly become more prosperous and prosperous. All of the sea folk were grateful to the Lord Priest's benevolence and viewed him as the teacher of their lives. Thus, every time the Lord Priest went out, he would attract the attention of all the sea folk. They would sincerely kneel on the ground, lowering their heads and kissing the ground where he walked. Beneath his gorgeous and dignified robes, the Lord Priest gently smiled. From time to time, he would nod to his followers or reach out a hand to stroke their heads. And every sea folk that could obtain the Lord Priest's touch would become the envy of all. According to convention, for the next 3 years, they would not need to wash their hair in order to avoid ruining the good fortune that the Lord Priest had bestowed upon them. The Lord Priest reached out a hand and stroked a baby in the arms of a woman. He said in a low voice, "May the sea spirit be with you." The Lord Priest had already done this countless times. It was natural and holy. As the woman nearly fainted from excitement, the Lord Priest continued walking forwards. But at this time, he suddenly stopped and turned to look at the crowd. As if there was an inexplicable strength, the sea folk automatically parted, revealing a black-robed figure at the edge of the street. He should be a member of some caravan. Although his face was covered in shadows, one could still feel that there was no awe in the eyes that shot at him. This caused the sea folk to be enraged. To hide oneself in front of the Lord Priest was a great disrespect to begin with, but he actually dared to look at him so rudely. He really deserved to die. The caravan owner's complexion was ugly. Just as he was about to curse out loud, the Lord Priest suddenly said, "Guest from afar, I can see that you are someone favored by the sea spirit. I wonder if you are willing to return to Sea God Palace with me." The black-robed figure smiled. He bowed, "It would be my honor." At this time, the eyes of all the sea folk turned to envy and awe. Sea spirit favored, although they had never heard of this name before, the grand aura contained within it was rich and blazing. The others in the caravan were all stunned. They thought that this boy that joined several days ago was clearly unremarkable, so how could he have become the sea spirit's favored one? Also, we didn't offend him before, did we? Should they leave moon-praying shrine ahead of time? As they were struggling with this, the Lord Priest expressed his apologies to his followers and ended today's journey ahead of time. He brought the mysterious sea spirit favored one with him and vanished from the end of the street. The dignity and luxury of Sea God Palace was directly reflected in Moon Praying Shrine. Its scale was so large that it could almost compare with the royal palace in the capital city. It occupied the highest and largest mountain peak of the underwater mountain range, overlooking the endless tribes below. The Lord Priest waved his hands, a smile on his face. "Little friend, coming to my moon-praying shrine is truly a pleasant surprise. Could it be that you have thought things through?" He pulled down his black robes to reveal a smiling face. Although he couldn't be considered handsome, every line of his face was filled with unswerving determination. "Lord Priest, this junior came here today to make a transaction with you." This so-called sea spirit favored one was naturally Qin Yu. He had released the aura of the saint flower from his body on his own initiative, so the Lord Priest could naturally recognize him. The Lord Priest's eyes flashed. For a little friend to take such a risk to come to the sea region, it seems this transaction isn't simple at all. Of course. Qin Yu faintly smiled. "Lord Priest, do you want to make Moon Praying Shrine even more formidable?" An hour later, the Lord Priest left Sea God Palace in a rush. Countless priests stared with wide eyes, wondering if there was something wrong with their eyes. Why did the holy and noble Lord Priest look as if he were drunk? He staggered several times, nearly falling over, and there was even saliva at the corners of his mouth. What was going on? They must have seen wrong, they must have seen wrong. This was an illusion. On that day, strict orders were passed down that no one was allowed to speak a single word about this illusion. The next day, a secret order of the highest level was sent out from Sea God Palace and delivered into the hands of 10 sea folk that had been selected. These sea folk were puzzled. They were required to keep this strictly confidential and not reveal anything to the outside world, otherwise they would suffer the most severe punishment. When they gathered in an underground hall of Sea God Palace, the 10 of them glanced at each other, their hearts chilled. But in the next moment, they straightened their backs. Moon Praying Shrine was large, but at the same time it was small. Most of them knew each other or had heard of each other's names. They had a general understanding of each other's circumstances and it was easy for them to find common ground. First of all, they were all at the peak Golden Core realm and hadn't made any progress in many years. Secondly, they had all undergone tests to ensure their loyalty to the tribe. Then, there was no need to say anything else. The tribe was definitely planning some secret operation. Were they going to send them to assassinate some important figure in the capital city? The hearts of the 10 sea folk seethed with excitement. Although they knew they were doomed to die and they wouldn't be able to leave behind any reputation, they still didn't hesitate. Everything was for Moon Praying Shrine. So, when the Lord Priest arrived, he was greeted with burning hot gazes that said they weren't afraid of death. It was as if they were willing to shed their blood and fight wherever the Lord Priest pointed. The Lord Priest was an astute character. His thoughts raced and a plan appeared in his mind. He solemnly said, "Everyone, I have an important mission for you all. The success or failure of this matter concerns the rise or fall of my Moon Praying Shrine for the next 1,000 years, so I hope that you will all do your best. We will not disappoint Lord Priest." As he thought, the following matters were much simpler. There was no need for any nonsense. The 10 sea folk were extremely obedient, doing whatever they were told without asking a single question. The Lord Priest stroked his beard and smiled, gratified by his own wit. Chapter 2:18. The first to be chosen was a sea folk named Iron Shield. He was a man with a strong temperament and a firm and resolute face. It was clear that he possessed an extremely powerful will. He was brought away from the underground palace. But what happened next left Iron Shield scratching his head in confusion. A puzzled look appeared in his eyes. But he could see that the busy priests around him all had serious expressions. He took a deep breath and suppressed all his thoughts. He earnestly complied with the priest's requests. First, he bathed and changed his clothes. Iron Shield soaked in a scalding hot pool for over 2 hours. He was scrubbed until his entire body was red and he looked like a cooked shrimp. Then, he put on a thin outer garment and was brought into another sealed chamber. He really only had a single outer garment on. So, as he walked, he inevitably felt the wind blow against his crotch, causing him to subconsciously clamp his legs together. Then, there was a sumptuous feast. There was no lack of precious tonics. Iron Shield thought that this might be his last meal, so he didn't care too much about it. He opened his arms wide and stuffed himself with food. It wasn't until he hiccuped and his cheeks turned red that he stopped. He felt as if a fire had been ignited within his body. His throat was dry and he felt uncomfortable. Then, as if they could see that he was thirsty, the priests brought over a bowl of tea. Iron Shield took it and drank it clean. He immediately felt his entire body become comfortable. But this comfort only lasted for a very short time before it was torn apart by the burning aura that surged out. The demonic power around his body began to tumble, and his red eyes gradually blurred. Before he lost consciousness, the only thought in his mind was, what the hell was he doing? Then, Iron Shield fell into a deep unconsciousness. He had a dream. In this dream, he was tossed about on an undulating sea. Every part of his body ached with pain. After an unknown period of time, Iron Shield's eyes flashed open. He felt that something was wrong with his body. He looked down and found that he was naked without a single piece of clothing. Moreover, what was most terrifying was that he saw a pair of bright eyes staring at him, as if they were looking at the most precious jewel in the world. The burning heat in those eyes caused Iron Shield's hair to stand on end. He thought back to the bath and change of clothes, the sumptuous feast, and the burning sensation that surged out from his body after drinking that cup of tea. Then he thought back to the terrifying dream he had. It was as if he was being pushed around on the sea. Iron Shield's eyes widened and a surge of grief and indignation surged out. He roared and punched out, sending the owner of the eyes flying. Dong! The man landed heavily on the ground and coughed violently. When he raised his head again, his eyes had turned into deep panda eyes. Iron Shield's expression greatly changed. Sacrifice, 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 sacrifice. Why are you here? Could it be that the one who did that to him was actually the Lord Priest that he had always revered like a deity? But why? As the representative of the sea spirit's will, how could he be so filthy? The priest held onto his injured waist, struggling to crawl up from the ground. This caused Iron Shield's face to pale even further. It was unknown what he was thinking, but he had a look of despair on his face. In the end, the priest was a shrewd old fox. He hadn't noticed anything strange at first, but now he understood. Looking at the boy's thick body, the priest almost vomited. Did he think he was some sort of outstanding beauty or something? Even if I really like men, I won't find someone as rough as you. Paw paw paw. You are the one who likes men. Everyone in your family likes men. The Lord Priest's face darkened. Iron Shield, put away your messy thoughts and carefully sense your cultivation. Is there anything wrong with it? Iron Shield was stunned. He subconsciously did the same, and then he really was left dumbfounded. His eyes widened, and his face was filled with unimaginable shock. 2222, it was broken. He was actually a nascent soul realm sea folk. Could it be that by being touched by the Lord Priest, he could make a breakthrough? If this was really the case, then it wasn't impossible to accept. His lips twitched. He picked up a set of robes and put them on. Then, he stood up and said, "Thank you, Lord Priest." Blue veins popped up on the Lord Priest's forehead and he looked as if he were about to explode. "You bastard, who do you think you are that I would like you? I wasn't the one who helped you make a breakthrough. Let's talk about this later. First, tell me about your situation. Is there anything wrong with it?" Iron Shield was startled and then immediately overjoyed. Didn't this mean that he hadn't been touched by the Lord Priest? He hurriedly said, reporting to the Lord Priest, "Iron Shield feels very good. There isn't anything wrong with me." However, the Lord Priest's words seemed to have another meaning. "If you don't like me, could it be that you like someone else?" The hairs on Iron Shield's back stood up. As long as it wasn't him, then everything was fine. Others couldn't do anything about it. The truth was that the Lord Priest had already confirmed this before Iron Shield woke up. The reason he asked again was because he wanted to make a final confirmation. Now that he had confirmed that there were no problems with Iron Shield's breakthrough, the Lord Priest was overjoyed beyond words. Thus, he turned a blind eye to the strange expression on this bastard's face. "Leave first and observe Sea God Palace for several days. Remember, do not tell anyone about this matter." Iron Shield respectfully nodded. 3 days later, the Lord Priest, who still had dark circles around his eyes, led the Vice Priest and other high-level figures of Sea God Palace to a side hall, all smiles. "Men, hurry and bring Priest Chin Yu's robes. Also, clean up one of the 12 main palaces and ask Priest Chin Yu to move in." Chin Yu's eyes flashed. "That's not right. I remember that when I left the capital city in the past, the Lord Priest had already announced to the public that my status as a guest priest had been revoked." The Lord Priest waved his hand. "How could that be? What my moon-praying shrine revoked was the status of another priest. It had nothing to do with you, Chin Yu. Now that you have come to our moon-praying shrine, that is the same as returning home. There is no need for you to worry about anything. If anyone dares to look for trouble with you, they will be the enemy of my moon-praying shrine." Chin Yu smiled. He admired how thick this old fellow's skin was. In particular, this old fellow was able to put on such a righteous and self-righteous appearance. "Alright, let's not mention these things for now. The Lord Priest came today, so I believe he must have carefully confirmed that fellow Taoist Iron Shield is fine." The Lord Priest nodded. "I have always trusted Priest Chin Yu." Chin Yu inwardly curled his lips. He was disinclined to argue about these things with the Lord Priest and went straight to the point. "Then, we can have a serious discussion." The Lord Priest waved his hand. "Priest Chin Yu, please feel free to speak. As long as I can do it, I will definitely agree." This old thing, he was trying to show off his heroic spirit but had actually secretly added some restrictions. What did he mean by he could do it? If you want to do it, then you can do it. If you don't want to do it, then of course you can't. Chin Yu had no intention of playing any tricks. He was pressed for time. "Lord Priest, I can help Moon Praying Shrine gain another batch of nascent soul powerhouses. The price you need to pay is the Saint Flower's flowers. Every flower will be exchanged for a nascent soul." Across from him, the complexions of everyone from Moon Praying Shrine changed. The Lord Priest flatly refused. "That is impossible. The Saint Flower's flowers are limited, and each one is extremely important to my Moon Praying Shrine. In the past, when we gave one to Priest Chin Yu, that was the Saint Flower's wool, otherwise there would have been no way for you to obtain it." Chin Yu lightly said, "The Saint Flower can grow. As long as you don't pluck too many at once, the flowers that are plucked can still grow back." He paused for a moment and continued to say, "Lord Priest, please do not deny it. For better or worse, I am a purple card and I have personally treated the Saint Flower, so I am well aware of this point." The Lord Priest coughed. A flower for a nascent soul is impossible. The losses to the saint flower are far too great. This old fellow wasn't embarrassed at all after being exposed. He immediately began to haggle over the price. Qin Yu didn't care. He smiled and said, "Then, what is Lord Priest's intention?" 2 hours later, after a battle of wits and courage, both sides finally managed to come up with an acceptable plan. Qin Yu would help Moon Praying Shrine reach nascent soul, and Moon Praying Shrine would pay a reward. Every 3 nascent souls would be exchanged for a flower of the saint flower as well as 30 million spirit stones. The Lord Priest's complexion was ugly. It was clear that Qin Yu's bite had hurt him greatly. But, even in the sea region, a nascent soul realm martial artist was an extremely powerful existence. If they could add another batch, Moon Praying Shrine's strength would rise dramatically. So, no matter how much his heart ached, he had to accept this. Qin Yu rejected the proposal to move into one of the 12 main palaces and continued to live here. As he watched the Lord Priest and the others leave, his taut heart relaxed a little. At the very least, it seemed that his decision to come to Moon Praying Shrine was the right one. This old fellow Lord Priest was extremely smart. He hoped that he would continue to be smart. That would be good for everyone. Stepping out of the side hall, the high-level figures of Sea God Palace hesitated to speak. Finally, the purple-robed priest spoke up. "Lord Priest, Qin Yu is only a human. In the sea region, he has no foundation or support. Why don't we capture him? We will eventually find a way to find out the reason why heavenly tribulation vanished from his mouth. Of course, doing so might not be honorable, but compared to the 10,000 years of inheritance of my tribe, what does it matter if we have to bear a bit of infamy? If Lord Priest is not willing to help, then we can do it in your place." This was clearly the same thought that echoed in everyone's hearts. Many eyes gathered on him, their expressions grim. The Lord Priest frowned. He slowly said, "None of you understand." He took several steps forward and then turned around. "This Qin Yu is far more formidable and unfathomable than any of you can imagine. Since he dares to step into my Moon Praying Shrine alone and discuss this transaction with me, he must have something to rely on. So what if he has something to rely on? Do you think he can stir up any waves in my Moon Praying Shrine?" A purple-robed priest said in a low voice. The Lord Priest lightly said, "Qin Yu once used the saint flower to threaten me. He said that since he has a way to revive the saint flower, he also has a way to destroy it. For these past years, I have been constantly investigating. Although I haven't discovered anything, what if this is what he is relying on? The saint flower concerns the rise and fall of my Moon Praying Shrine. Who among you can shoulder this responsibility?" Everyone's complexions changed, anger rising in their eyes. This was the first time that the Lord Priest had mentioned this matter. They had just learned that Qin Yu dared to be so rampant. It was no wonder that the Lord Priest had chosen to silently endure this. "That's enough. Regarding Qin Yu, don't act recklessly." There was something that the Lord Priest didn't say, and that was that if they acted recklessly, there would be a great disaster. The current Qin Yu was far more formidable than he was 4 years ago. Moreover, what left the Lord Priest even more apprehensive was that he could actually feel a threat from Qin Yu. This strange feeling was something that the Lord Priest was sure Qin Yu possessed on his body, something extremely terrifying that could even pose a threat to him. In addition to the strange reactions of the Saint Flower and the priests of the capital city, if it weren't for these things, did they really think he was a vegetarian? He would deliver a fat piece of meat to his mouth and then push it away with his hands. Chapter 219. Iron Shield was the first sea folk to break through. Then came the second, third, and more. Every 5 days, Qin Yu would help a sea folk cross tribulation. Although swallowing heavenly tribulation was as simple as eating and drinking to the little blue lamp, he still maintained this rhythm. He would also come up with all sorts of strange reasons, such as bathing and changing clothes, or making sure the person crossing tribulation was unconscious. This was to create a sense of mystery and ensure the little blue lamp's secret. At the same time, Moon Praying Shrine would know that helping someone cross tribulation wasn't an easy matter. 2 months later, the 10 sea folk that Moon Praying Shrine had carefully selected all reached the nascent soul realm. This caused the Lord Priest to beam with joy, but at the same time he felt his heart ache. The astute Chin Yu first received payment and then helped the sea folk complete their breakthrough. The Lord Priest was as sly as a fox and there was no way he could deny this. Without payment, the cooperation was over and Chin Yu could leave at any time. The sea region was so vast and Moon Praying Shrine wasn't the only place that could afford the price. The 10 nascent souls of Moon Praying Shrine provided the little blue lamp with 10 heavenly tribulations, 3 saint flowers, and 130 million spirit stones. The extra 30 million was because Moon Praying Shrine couldn't provide more saint flowers. The Lord Priest clenched his teeth and accepted this. To Moon Praying Shrine, which had an endless inheritance and deep background, spirit stones weren't anything at all. Let alone a mere 100 million, they could even take out 10 billion. But the saint flowers required an incalculable amount of strength in order to grow. In itself, they were extremely precious treasures. Even in Moon Praying Shrine, there were less than 10 people that possessed the saint flowers, including the Lord Priest. But now, Chin Yu alone had 3. This was Moon Praying Shrine's bottom line. The Lord Priest bitterly smiled. Priest Chin Yu, can't you look at our friendship and bend the rules a little? Moon Praying Shrine can pay a high amount of spirit stones or other treasures as long as Priest Chin Yu agrees to continue resisting heavenly tribulation for our powerhouses. As he spoke of heavenly tribulation, the Lord Priest's expression became strange. He had clearly seen 10 consecutive heavenly tribulations, and yet they had all vanished without warning. Even with the Lord Priest's cultivation, he still couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine as he thought of this. Chin Yu shook his head. Lord Priest, you should know how terrifying nascent soul heavenly tribulation is. If it weren't for the saint flowers, I wouldn't have helped. The effects of the saint flowers had played a crucial role in his 10 failed breakthroughs to nascent soul. It also allowed Chin Yu to understand just how powerful they were. Now, 3 of the saint flowers had fused into his body. As long as he wasn't directly killed in the future, no matter how serious his injuries were, he was confident he could survive with the powerful regenerative abilities of the demon body. This was the reason he insisted on asking for the saint flower as payment. The Lord Priest's face was filled with disappointment. Chin Yu's attitude was firm and it was clear he wasn't joking. But for the time being, there was no way he could pick any more saint flowers. At this time, Chin Yu's eyes flashed. Although I cannot continue to help Moon Praying Shrine train powerhouses, I have a suggestion that Lord Priest might be able to earn a great deal from. The priest frowned. Priest Chin Yu, what do you mean? For instance, Moon Praying Shrine can step forward and act as a guarantor for me. All sea folk that come to break into nascent soul will need to pay a portion of their rewards to Moon Praying Shrine. For instance, Moon Praying Shrine can act as a guarantor for me. All sea folk that come to break through to nascent soul will need to pay a portion of their rewards to Moon Praying Shrine. In fact, if Moon Praying Shrine can provide a comprehensive guarantee that I won't be influenced by the outside world, I wouldn't mind serving Moon Praying Shrine again. The Lord Priest's eyes brightened, but he had an awkward expression on his face. Priest Chin Yu, you should know your status. Once news of this spreads out, it will be difficult for me. Chin Yu nodded in understanding. If Lord Priest feels this is difficult, then just pretend that I didn't say anything. After all, there are many choices in the sea region. I will just take a few more paths. The Lord Priest nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. Was there anyone else who negotiated like this? Relying on the fact that he had the initiative, he didn't even give him a chance to bargain. If there was even the slightest dissatisfaction, he would flip the table. Did he really think he was made of clay? Bang! The Lord Priest slapped the table and stood up. Priest Chinyu, you have gone too far. What do you take me for? What do you take my moon-praying shrine for? Not to mention the fact that you once saved the Saint Flower, just based on the fact that you are my moon-praying shrine's guest priest, I will protect you no matter the cost. You don't need to worry about what happens outside. I will definitely satisfy you. Chinyu was stunned. He thought to himself, Lord Priest, just how did you climb up to such a high position? Were the people of Moon-Praying Shrine blind? But no matter what he thought, this was the best result for Chinyu. The Lord Priest smiled. Now, how about we carefully discuss how to distribute the profits? Priest Chinyu should take the lion's share, but we should at least leave some soup for our Moon-Praying Shrine to drink. After whispering for a long time, the two old and young foxes finally reached an agreement. They glanced at each other and smiled. The Lord Priest bid his farewells and left. He said that he had to hurry to make arrangements to ensure that nothing went wrong. After leaving the side hall, the smile on his face disappeared. He frowned as if he were thinking about something. He seemed to be hesitating, but in the end he sighed and quickly left. Chinyu sat in the side hall. After waiting for a long time for everything to calm down, his tense body relaxed a little. He muttered to himself, that old fox, Lord Priest. He definitely smelled that something was wrong, but he didn't do anything in the end. There shouldn't be any more problems after this. Moon-Praying Shrine was puzzled by the Lord Priest's decision to join forces with Chinyu to make a fortune. Some impatient ones directly called out. No, I object. Lord Priest, Chinyu has helped increase my Moon-Praying Shrine's strength by 10 nascent souls, giving us an advantage in the past. If we tell other influences about this matter, they will soon catch up and our advantage will be gone. That is indeed the case. Lord Priest, please reconsider. What sort of background does my Moon-Praying Shrine have? How could we care about some trifling spirit stones? Even if there are other benefits, you shouldn't have agreed to join forces with Chinyu. The Lord Priest had a calm expression. He looked around and lightly said, Do you think my objection is useful? Everyone was stunned. Chinyu is not under Moon-Praying Shrine's control. If I don't agree, he can leave and find another place to start anew. At that time, rather than being taken advantage of by other influences, it would be better for our Moon-Praying Shrine to swallow him whole. A sharp light flashed in the Lord Priest's eyes. Moreover, for these past 2 months, heavenly tribulation has frequently descended upon our tribe. Do you think this hasn't aroused any attention? The opposing voices were quickly suppressed. The Lord Priest's will was carried out. Soon, news that Moon-Praying Shrine intentionally released spread throughout the sea region in the shortest possible time. The mysterious sea spirit's caretaker could help those trapped at the Golden Core realm reach nascent soul. The sea region was seething with activity. Countless people were trapped at the Golden Core realm. The sea folk that hadn't dared to break through had eyes that blazed like suns, filled with excitement and ecstasy. But the great figures of the true top influences knew even more. This was because even in Moon-Praying Shrine, they had spies that could obtain information. Capital City. The Sea Sovereign frowned. Chinyu, it's actually him. Could it be that he hasn't left and has been hiding in Moon-Praying Shrine all this time? After hesitating for a long time, he asked, Mister, what do you think of this matter? Mr. Turtle shook his head. If it were anyone else that said they could help a Golden Core reach nascent soul, I wouldn't believe them at all. But the one who did this was Chinyu, that brat, he is far too evil. The sea sovereign nodded. Mr. thinks the same as this solitude. No matter what the truth is, this solitude hopes that Mr. can take this solitude's place. Mr. Turtle stood up. He respectfully said, "Your Majesty, rest assured that I will not disappoint you." The whale sovereign clenched his fists. The jade slip in his hand instantly disintegrated into powder that fell through his fingers. "Chinyu, I never thought that you would dare to return. This time, I will make sure you die without a grave." Master, Chinyu is currently an honored guest of Moon Praying Shrine. Moreover, it is rumored that he has the ability to help a golden core break into nascent soul. If we move against him, I fear we will provoke public anger. Such preposterous words, and there are actually people who believe them. How laughable. The whale sovereign had an indifferent expression. The might of heavenly tribulation represents the will of the world, it is the most formidable strength in the world. Even I don't dare to challenge its edge, so how could Chinyu do it? Presumably, this is some trick that he and Moon Praying Shrine joined together to play. But, there is no need to say anything more. My mind has already been made up. Sega City. Sang Yeye ran in, her face red. Mother, I heard news about Big Brother Chinyu. He is at Moon Praying Shrine. In these 4 years, she seemed to have only grown a little bit. She hadn't changed much from the past. In the grand hall, the noble and dignified woman frowned. She reprimanded, "How old are you? Why are you so flustered? Where is your sense of propriety?" Sang Yeye stuck out her tongue and bowed. "It was your daughter's mistake. I ask Mother to forgive me." The woman's eyes flashed. She thought that this little girl Yeye really did treat Chinyu differently, otherwise why would she bow her head and apologize in such a well-behaved manner? Perhaps she wanted to follow along. She thought for a moment and said, "Yeye, you can go to Moon Praying Shrine, but you must guarantee that you will follow 7th Auntie's arrangements. You cannot act recklessly." Sang Yeye was overjoyed. She hugged the woman and cheered, "Thank you, Mother. Your daughter will definitely listen to you and will not make things difficult for 7th Auntie." The woman helplessly smiled. "Go and prepare." After the young girl left, the woman lightly said, "Hongmian, investigate what is going on. If things are really as the rumors say, do not hesitate to pay any price to win over Chinyu and have him come to my Sega City." The woman bowed. "Yes, madam." Troop after troop began to set out. They passed deep into the sea, heading straight for Moon Praying Shrine at the fastest speed possible. But in fact, even with Moon Praying Shrine's endorsement, there were still very few people that completely believed that the so-called sea spirit caretaker could help them break into nascent soul. But even if there was only a glimmer of hope, there were still many people that didn't want to miss it. Moon Praying Shrine soon became lively, attracting the attention of the entire sea region. Chapter 220. Outside Moon Praying Shrine, a group of people were covered in dust. But they couldn't conceal the weariness in their eyes, and they emitted a fierce aura. Even facing the wolf riders, their backs were still straight and their eyes were cold and calm. They exuded an aura that was different from a mountain. This was because they came from the capital city's war division. Like the wolf riders, they were one of the strongest war divisions in the sea region. The seniors of both sides had fought many years ago and both sides had won and lost. Shuizheng patted the sea wolf beneath him, calming it down. He cupped his hands together and said, "Shuizheng respectfully welcomes Mr. Turtle Origin." The carriage opened to reveal the calm face of the old turtle. "Commander Shui, there is no need to be so polite." Shuizheng nodded. "Mister, please follow me into the city." The sea folk of the capital city's war division began to adjust their armor and enter the range of Moon Praying Shrine with the best posture possible. On the long street, many sea folk revealed awe as they looked at the slowly approaching group. But there were even more that were unscrupulous and cold. The former were sea folk from all over, and the latter were mostly people from Moon-Praying Shrine. To any influence, the capital city was an existence that they couldn't contend with. Moon-Praying Shrine was the only exception. It was like this in the past, it was like this now, and it would be like this in the future. The wolf riders led the way. Within the carriage, Turtle Origin suddenly said, "Commander Shui, I would like to see fellow Daoist Qin. I wonder if that is possible." Shui Jing turned. "Mister, please wait a moment." He took out a spirit shell and called. The call soon connected. After a few calm and respectful words, he hung up and put away the spirit shell. Shui Jing said, "The priest said that everything will be decided by Priest Qin. Moon-Praying Shrine will not interfere." Within the carriage, Turtle Origin revealed a look of surprise. He never imagined that Qin Yu would have such high authority in Moon-Praying Shrine. He thought for a moment and said, "Then I ask Commander Shui to pass on the message." "All right." Shui Jing took out a spirit shell. Besides specially refined spirit shells that could be used for long-distance communication, the range of use of spirit shells was extremely limited. Moon-Praying Shrine had a delicate relationship with the capital city, so neither side had opened a special line. Thus, the spirit shells brought by the capital city couldn't be used here. Priest Qin Yu has agreed. We will hurry over and arrive soon. Shui Jing ordered, and the group turned. Moments later, Turtle Origin stepped down from the carriage. He looked up at the majestic sea god palace. A complex light flashed in his eyes before he immediately composed himself. He climbed up the steps and soon sat across from Qin Yu in the side hall. "Senior Turtle, I haven't seen you for several years, but you are still as elegant as ever." Qin Yu smiled and cupped his hands together. Turtle Origin's eyes shrank. "Qin Yu, you are indeed extraordinary. In just a short 4 years, your cultivation has risen to such a degree. I'm afraid that in a few more years, even I won't be able to do anything to you." Qin Yu cupped his hands together. "Senior Turtle praises me too much. These 4 years, you've been in the Moon Crescent tribe." "No, I just came back 2 months ago." Qin Yu thought for a moment. "In the past, I obtained many harvests from the sea region. Now that I have the chance, I certainly hope to repay the sea races." Turtle Origin curled his lips. He had an expression that said, "I'd be a fool to believe you. Let's get down to business. His Majesty asked me to ask you, is it true that he helped you reach Nascent Soul?" Qin Yu smiled. With the spies in the capital city, could they not have obtained accurate information? Turtle Origin said solemnly, "This old man wants you to say it personally." Qin Yu nodded. "It's true." Turtle Origin had a strange look in his eyes. He looked at Qin Yu as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he swallowed his words. "Now, tell me your conditions." Qin Yu smiled. "Senior Turtle, there is no need to be anxious. I have already asked Moon-Praying Shrine to make preparations. The news will soon be announced and you will know at that time." Mr. Turtle frowned. A foreboding premonition rose in his heart. And this premonition was confirmed not long after. Verified. Moon-Praying Shrine exclusively sold jade slips that recorded the price needed to reach Nascent Soul. There were only 100 of them, and each one was priced at 10,000 spirit stones. What? You think it's too expensive? Then please help yourself. When our Moon-Praying Shrine does business, we have always adhered to the principle of fairness and justice. We will never force anyone to buy or sell. But if we don't buy jade slips and instead listen to hearsay, then if something is wrong, then our Moon-Praying Shrine will not take responsibility. As soon as the jade slips appeared, they immediately drew countless denunciations. But the situation was that everyone was cursing and fighting over them at the same time. The 100 jade slips were soon sold out. In the words of the Lord Priest, although 1,000,000 spirit stones wasn't much, mosquito meat was still meat. Moon Praying Shrine was a large organization, so it was always good to be able to subsidize a little. With 100 jade slips, there were too many people and news would leak out. So, it wasn't long before most of the sea folk learned of the conditions recorded within. For the first 50 nascent soul spots, the Netherworld Sea region's Netherworld realm would produce soul beads that could be used as currency. 3 soul beads could be exchanged for a single nascent soul spot. Of course, the premise was that the cultivator exchanging for it had to follow all of Moon Praying Shrine's arrangements and also have the strength to draw down heavenly tribulation. As for the last 50 nascent soul spots, they would be auctioned off. Soul beads would still be the preferred currency, but other treasures could also be used. The conversion ratio was, 1 soul bead was equal to 40 million spirit stones. Among them, treasures that strengthened the soul and mortal body could be valued at different prices depending on how precious they were. Countless cultivators that weren't able to purchase a jade slip turned their heads and looked through it. To their surprise, they discovered that the price of a soul bead had risen by several times over. Moreover, on the market, nearly all of the soul beads in circulation had disappeared. It was like someone had already known about this and had bought them up ahead of time. Soon, Moon Praying Shrine announced that the few soul beads they had in stock would be publicly sold. Of course, it wasn't a clear price, but an auction where the highest bidder would win. Instantly, countless people gnashed their teeth. One didn't need to be an idiot to know that this massive purchase of soul beads was inextricably linked to Moon Praying Shrine. In fact, this was a method that the so-called sea spirit caretakers had joined forces with Moon Praying Shrine to make a fortune. In fact, their guess wasn't wrong. But even if they knew, they could only endure it in this situation. Many people hesitated. The price of a soul bead was shockingly high. They began to worry that this was a trick of Moon Praying Shrine. If they couldn't break into nascent soul after purchasing it, then they really wouldn't have a place to cry. At this time, a lucky seafolk wandering cultivator took 3 soul beads and found Moon Praying Shrine. Instantly, countless cultivators focused on him. Before, when Moon Praying Shrine's 10 nascent souls broke through, it was shocking. But in the end, this was only a rumor, no one had seen it with their own eyes. Now, they would soon find out what the effects were. The result was that the sea folk that were paying attention to this matter obtained shocking news the next day. Black clouds gushed out from nothingness, weaving together into a great curtain that covered the skies above Moon Praying Shrine. A terrifying aura sprinkled down. Nascent soul heavenly tribulation. Heavens, he really crossed tribulation. I saw that person yesterday. His cultivation is inferior to mine and he is also a wandering cultivator without any foundation, so how could he possibly cross tribulation? The result will be revealed soon. Bang! The first bolt of heavenly tribulation. The terrifying tribulation thunder roared and vanished deep into Sea God Palace. Without pausing, there was another loud bang as the second bolt of tribulation thunder arrived. Then the third. When the tribulation clouds above began to disperse, many sea folk were still dizzy and hadn't regained their composure. This was it. How could it be so fast? Moreover, where was the strength of the 3 bolts of heavenly tribulation? After entering Sea God Palace, it was like they had vanished into thin air. And most importantly, 3 bolts of heavenly tribulation had actually descended. Could it be, he had succeeded? Everyone's eyes widened. It was like there were thousands of wild cats hiding in their hearts, scratching them to death. Luckily, they didn't have to wait too long. The first wandering cultivator was personally escorted out of Sea God Palace by the Lord Priest. This person's face was full of smiles, his grin nearly reaching his ears. And, what was most terrifying was the faint pressure that filled the air around his body. This was the result of his boundary rising and his strength not being restrained, allowing it to naturally emit outwards. Nascent soul, it really was a nascent soul. There was a deathly silence outside Sea God Palace. The Lord Priest swept his eyes around and cursed these people for being country bumpkins. He never imagined that he wouldn't have been much better off than these people. He coughed and said, "Everyone, since my moon-praying shrine dared to make such a promise, we naturally have absolute confidence in our abilities. This fellow Taoist Fiery Rain has already reached nascent soul, and just yesterday he was a perfect golden core. I believe that many of you have seen fellow Taoist Fiery Rain. The truth is right before your eyes. Do you still want to wait? Fuck. It's true. That's right, I saw this person approach Sea God Palace with my own eyes. In just a single day, he actually reached nascent soul. This is impossible, this is impossible." In the chaos, one of Fiery Rain's companions took out a soul mark and confirmed his identity. The chaos reached its peak. "Hurry and find the soul bead." "Fuck, the price has risen again, it's risen again. I can't afford it. If you can't buy it then steal it. If you can't steal it then look for it yourself." "That's right, the soul bead is in the Netherworld Sea region. I'm going now." Everyone went crazy. In just a single day, the first 50 nascent soul spots had all been exchanged up. Although soul beads were rare and precious, to a true top influence, as long as they were willing to put in the effort, they would eventually be able to find them. The only question was how much they had to pay. Moon Praying Shrine made a great profit. The profits were so rich that even the wealthy high-level figures of Moon Praying Shrine secretly clicked their tongues. Then, they beamed with joy. This business deal was something that he had to get. But thinking about it, the Lord Priest's lips twitched at the thought of giving Qin Yu a large portion of the profits. However, as he stood in the side hall, Qin Yu accepted the spirit stones and casually tossed over a storage shell. The Lord Priest probed it with his divine sense and was stunned for a moment. He cursed inwardly, how shady. But this old man liked it. Inside the storage shell were 100 soul beads. Qin Yu smiled. "I'll have to trouble Lord Priest to help me sell them. 20% of the profits can be considered as repayment to Lord Priest." The Lord Priest brightly smiled. "Priest Qin Yu is too polite. Please rest assured that I will definitely sell them for a high price." As Qin Yu watched him leave, his lips curled up in a smile. Because of his appearance, the value of soul beads had risen far too much. If he sold them now, it would be the best time to make a great profit. And most importantly, the soul beads that he sold would eventually return to his hands. After all, if someone was willing to spend a great deal of money to buy soul beads now, it was definitely because they wanted to break into nascent soul. If they wanted to break into nascent soul then they had to look for him, Qin Xiaoqiang. Bah, it was Qin Yu, that damned old Wang. That mysterious Miss Spirity from Immortal Eclipse Valley had once said that the soul mushroom needed a massive amount of spiritual strength to make a breakthrough. Since she knew the state of the soul mushroom, in addition to her speculations, he naturally had to pay attention to her words. Qin Yu didn't know exactly how much he needed, but the scene of him forming his 5-element golden cores was still vivid in his mind. Thus, it wasn't wrong to prepare a bit more spirit stones. #######. I feel dizzy and a bit feverish. I also feel like I want to fall sick. I haven't been satisfied lately, so I won't force myself. I owe 5 chapters. Once my son is discharged from the hospital, I will return them to everyone. I won't say any apologies. Everyone, good night. Chapter 221. The Lord Priest was a clever person. Qin Yu had only mentioned the idea of bidding for the remaining 50 nascent soul spots, but in a short period of time the Lord Priest had expanded it to an extremely complete degree. For example, the auction would be held irregularly, and the priority would be to obtain soul beads every time. If one wanted to replace them with other treasures, the value of the soul beads would have to be twice that of the soul beads. Also, people would be sent to constantly spread the news. Every time a person was auctioned off, it would cause a huge commotion and make everyone feel pressured. Needless to say, the effect was really not bad. At the very least, the profits from the auctioned spots were frighteningly high, causing the Lord Priest to laugh so hard that his eyes almost popped out of his head. Of course, in order to earn this kind of windfall, one needed to have great strength as a guarantee. Otherwise, before one could even start to plan, one would be slapped to the ground. Luckily, Moon Praying Shrine had enough strength to swallow up this fat piece of meat. As for Qin Yu, he didn't plan on staying in the sea region for long to begin with, so there was nothing to fear. Sea God Palace, Side Hall. Qin Yu held the soul mushroom and placed a soul bead close to it. Mist gushed out from it and was absorbed in several breaths of time. Pa, the soul pearl shattered into powder. As this scene fell into his eyes and he thought about how the outside world had been hyped up for an astonishing price, he couldn't help but bitterly smile. He thought that this was simply eating up one mountain of gold after another. If it weren't for the fact that the soul mushrooms were too precious, he would have taken advantage of this opportunity to make a massive profit. The only thing that comforted Qin Yu was that as it swallowed the soul beads, the soul mushroom's growth accelerated. There were changes almost every day. Of course, these changes were very minute and required careful observation to notice. Luckily, Qin Yu had enough patience. If the soul mushroom was 1,000 years old, one could refine it and obtain a partner soul. What kind of treasure was this? Even if he had to expend a lot of effort to obtain it, it would be worth it. At this time, a respectful voice sounded out from outside the hall. Priest Qin Yu, Sega City's special envoy requests an audience. Qin Yu's eyes flashed. Invite them in. He put away the soul mushroom and straightened his robes. With the sound of cheerful footsteps, Sang Yeye's blushing face appeared in front of him. Big brother Qin Yu. The little girl, who hadn't changed much, was incomparably excited. Qin Yu was all smiles. Yeye, you also came. Why didn't you come to see me earlier? Sang Yeye stuck out her tongue. The woman had a helpless expression. Turtle Origin frowned. Qin Yu, they are all loyal to the royal palace, Qin Yu coldly said, impossible. If Senior does not agree, then the agreement between us will be nullified. Turtle Origin took a deep breath. He waved his hand, indicating that these sea folk were fierce. One of the sea folk had a sullen expression. Priest Qin Yu, I am not from the whale monster race, I am from the white shark race. Qin Yu lightly said, I'm sorry, but I am not one of the sea folk so I don't understand them too well. As for those that look similar to me, I will not agree to any of them. Soon, Qin Yu's attitude towards the whale monster race spread throughout the entire sea region through the indignant mouths of several people. He wouldn't give a single spot to the whale monster race. Moreover, even if they looked similar, they still wouldn't agree. If the former was barely reasonable, then the latter was simply excessive. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.